How's it going, everybody? It's Man Tomorrow here. Thank you for liking, share, comment, subscribing to my channel. Today, we got to put some things to bed. Could y'all like the video of one coming in? It's only a one-part thing. Later on, we're going to do a greater expanse of these actual things going forward. But I just want y'all to see something today that went down on the Prophet of Thought series channel by um, Ty City. So I don't want to be the clip nigga that he says, but it's very important that we see exactly what's going on here. So that way we can go into these people who want to enter the actual conversation about politics when nothing is really required of them. So hold on a second. Basic. Okay. So you have these people around the space calling themselves hood conservatives. One is Trader MBD and the other one is David Monroe. I don't go on their channel because I smelled out very quickly that these people wasn't who they say they were. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into. I don't go on their channel because I. So that way we can be able to see what it is that the originator of the process of what this stuff actually means. I want to show it on screen. I don't know why it's not easy to share. Boom, share. All right, so I'm going to play this. So that way we can be able to understand clearly what we're talking about here. So this is the stream I just got on the one-on-one with me on our Bernard Riley show. Shout out to him. If you're not subscribed to his channel, please do. He runs a pretty good 8 a.m. to I think like 12 noonish operation there Eastern time, Monday through I guess he said Saturday now. He takes a break off a day Sunday. So thanks to him to we're gonna be playing this audio from his show, so that way we can be able to understand what we are talking about here.
I told you what you need to get, but you know niggas don't listen. So nah, hey, I mean, so it is what it is, man. It happens all the time, man. Hey, I've already spent my money in this. hey, take it back. I know you got the receipt.
Now the reason why I'm playing this from the first beginning to the end because I want you to see how we came into this, so that way there is no message differentiation between what he was saying and what he left out. I wanted to play his whole statement from beginning to end because a lot of times people say that things are being taken out of context whenever you are actually talking about something. So I just wanted to be able to play it from the beginning so that way you understand that there was nothing that was left out of this about the miscommunication about what was said on there. So,
man, go take that shit back, man. I, real quick, I do want to get on the topic. I know my camera got the capabilities. Is it the lights that you're saying that, or man, your camera ain't got the capabilities, man? Stop it. I told you what to get. What kind of camera did you tell me to get? How to get? I be playing with my set.
I think it came on once time. Complex Design came on, but let me.
And everybody who's listening, I am the originator of the ideology, of the theory of the hood conservative, and just to see people like misusing it and running around saying that they created it, bro. Now I got to say something. You know,
Ty City.
Nah, I gotta go in. I gotta go in because it's getting on my fucking nerves now. Because you know, MOT is right. It ain't got shit to do with no fucking policies or a political party. You know what I'm saying? When I heard Lil Boosie say about Dwayne Wade's son, don't cut his dick off, man. I was not associating him with a political party when I called him a hood conservative. When I seen 50 Cent going after people who was spewing feminist rhetoric, I was not associating him with a political party. You see what I'm saying? This is a countercultural thing that I've been examining. You see, the hood conservative is pretty much saying, hey, you know, I know that my peers feel like this, but I don't care. I'm gonna stand up, take the flame, and just, when I see Untitled Chapter, this young rapper who's fucking booming, comes out and speaks against Black Lives Matter. I'm not associating him with no political, with any kind of policies or no shit like that. And it didn't fuck with me until somebody came out and said, no, I am the creator. I invented it. And I'm like, wait a fucking second, bro. If anybody can show me where they use the term hood conservative before me, I'll give you the...
Interesting.
Ty City.
Good shit, Ty City. Well, you know, hey, that's very interesting, Ty City. I went through something similar. I went through something similar with something called Manosphere 3.0, right? Where all of a sudden...
Well, see, hold on, Complex, because see, y'all know my stance, right? I'm big. I'm not 100% for police. I think police harass people. I think police, I don't even think. I know they have high suicide rates. I know they have high domestic violence incidents. And I know they just as unstable as anybody else out here. And nobody holds them to a higher standard. I know this shit. I know that when people start talking about welfare and whatnot, they talking about the bottom line of, let's say, Section 8 is built into the fucking real estate industry. Food stamps is built into the farms, the General Mills, and all the rest of this shit. I know this shit. When you start talking about the Candace Owens types, they get amnesia whenever you ask them about where the fuck these narratives come from. They won't hold the media accountable because they are part of the fucking media. And I would never say some shit like, well, you know, welfare is a black thing. Fuck that. I would never fucking say no shit like that.
Yeah,
when the majority of the people on it aren't black.
Yeah. Right. So the people who are speaking directly to, let's say, they're speaking directly to the people that these agendas are supposed to be affecting the most. Okay. Those people are the hood conservative. That's who I labeled as the hood conservative.
Thank you for clearing that up, because you got somebody on the panel right now.
Easy. Oh, we just gonna go to it.
It's not even designed that way. You think they're gonna give the hood conservatives a seat at the table?
Yeah, but here's what I'm talking about.
Can you mute your mic? Hood conservatives.
Okay, so what I'm saying, Pastor, is that you just made some clear distinctions that I have not heard before. Sorry, but I did not know that you came up with the hood conservative shit.
Yeah, that was tight.
This is my first.
Right. I mean, and that's why I have to start. I have to speak up about this shit, because it's just, I'm documenting this shit that people who should definitely be on the left or should definitely be in this box are saying, hey, I'm not in that box. And they're influencing the youth. They're influencing the people that are supposed to be affected the most by the left, by these agendas and shit.
Okay, so I thank you for actually clearing that up, because people have co-opted something that you created and they've turned it into something else. And I know that.
Absolutely. And they're arguing points that would never fly. I would never fucking. I don't think police brutality and black-on-black crime should be used against each other. I think they're both two different problems.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, man. So thanks for clearing it.
Wait,
so that way we can be able to move forward. And this is why I'm saying this, Tassie. Listen, the more we flesh this shit out of what goes where, there's less room for confusion.
Yep.
There's way less room for confusion if all the actual things are on the table about where we're trying to go, what type of family you're trying to create, how this shit goes down, how we go about this shit. Other races of people do this shit. Like right. I have France and Florida, and you've never seen these motherfuckers go out there and do that shit. Why? Because they meet behind closed doors. They got their agenda fucking set, and they get all their needs fucking. And the people who don't want to operate within that shit, they're not even considered part of the fucking group.
Well, the big reason why I even brought this shit to the forefront is because I see it as being effective. You know what I'm saying? I see it as being effective and something that could actually work. The culture happening. You know what I'm saying? That's it. I'm recording on what I'm seeing. To take it and try to associate it with a political party, or you got to be like this, and line it up with the Candace Owens types and shit. Yo, nah, bro. Chill.
Well,
Chill.
let me jump right there.
Yeah. We gotta go to.
Okay. You know, now you understand what you just fucking heard, right? You understood what you just fucking heard. David Monroe is still on the fucking panel after the explanation was given that he is not a hood conservative. They just co-opted the shit. Ty City said the shit was meant to be for cultural fucking reasons. It was not some political shit. So when you have Trader MBD and David Monroe, who did not win that debate, by the way, come up with this shit and always trying to put themselves in the middle of political discussions, it's fucking bullshit. It's just flat out fucking bullshit. You got it in you. All right, we don't need to go through the rest of it. But here's the thing, man. Just like Trader MBD tried to do with SYSBM, he tried to turn it into some type of conservative fucking platform. Same shit. SYSBM is about black male outcomes. It's not a liberal, not a conservative thing. Just like the hood conservative is not a political group. Ty City is the only hood conservative here who's going to be talking about the issues of hood conservatism from here on out. You have to realize why these people who don't know shit about politics always want to be part of a political discussion. These people want to be a part of the political discussion to stop things from working. Because if black men separated and became our own fucking group, we wouldn't have to worry about people gathering behind bullshit and trying to co-opt things that are not theirs and try to turn it into some shit that it didn't mean. Realize there are policy discussing conservatives in this space. At some point in time, you got to have some integrity about yourself and stop trying to co-op shit that ain't fucking yours and turn it into something that is yours. Now, please keep in mind what the fuck you just heard. Between Ty City, the person who came up with the fucking moniker and the brand of hood conservative, and the guy on the panel who's calling himself a hood conservative right in front of his fucking face. So now we're going to hear what's going to happen when this motherfucker start talking. And this is why I get so fucking upset when I be around these dishonest pieces of shit. Because they don't fucking belong here. Like a hoe, you can't go off and create your own shit. Also like a hoe, they try to turn it into some shit that's not even the original point. Then, when it came time to debate, they still couldn't answer a single fucking question. And most of the questions he was getting, he did try to answer, he needed help through that shit. These people are not going to their side, and they're not going to ask for shit. They're only over here to actually destroy the actual ramifications for black men working together. No fucking sense. And this is why we cannot move forward, because motherfuckers ain't got the principle of fucking brotherhood. And we're never going to fucking get there if we got people weighing down the fucking conversation. We're going to listen to how this motherfucker actually answers for what the fuck it is that he just fucking heard. Oh, that this ain't no conservative shit. He didn't even say it was some liberal shit either.
We actually spoke on this once before on the brain trust. I think I was on the panel and you jumped up and you said the same thing. And I told you then, I had no idea that you even like came up with the term or even observed, like you just said, you kind of observed the move. And that's where I came in at it too.
Keep in mind, this dude is still named the hood conservative. He was just told where the shit came from. Hood is fucking conservative. This motherfucker is not a hood conservative. This motherfucker is anti-black. I'm with black motherfuckers getting killed by the police. I'm not. I want the motherfuckers to go to trial. I have a problem locking up black men fucking guilty. Everybody else still had no take So that's what I'm saying. If all these other people can get their day in court, we should be able to get ours too. I don't think our criminal justice system have any problem locking up people who are actually guilty. You've seen it yourself. There's no really fucking excuse for the way he was acting on that panel, and there was no reason for Bernard to keep trying to fucking take up for this dude. Here's the thing. I don't side with these motherfuckers, man. I don't side with the alphabet community. I don't do it. There's no reason for me to do that. But to try to misunderstand every single point that was made on the panel because he couldn't answer any questions. Now you know why he can't answer any questions, because he's not a so we got to make sure that if we're going to protect our space, we got to protect it with the fucking truth, man. There's no reason for you to create something and not rigorously have it policed. As you may know, I disagree vehemently with Alan Roger Curry when it comes to the career field that he's in and his book. However, if you are discussing his book in any fucking way and he gets wind of it, he comes out and he defends his brand, right, wrong, or indifferent. He's going to defend the intent of what it is. Most times he don't do it very well, but at the end of the day, now I understand why he comes out and these issues between us are pretty fucking easy. It's just that we need to be able to come to the table, as Black Uru Strike said, and find one or two issues for us to actually get behind. That's what all these other groups have done. They get behind one or two issues that help out the entire group and keep it moving. But you have to realize that black women and black men are two separate groups. Black women got their black family. Black men don't have their black family. Black men is considered a subgroup under black women, especially the game dudes. Also, within the same thing, dudes who really ain't got no kids or been messed up by the system, they're their own group too. Infantry skills, I think you can put black infrastructure first by not choosing these people within this collective to actually make a family with. That's why I like SYSBM. That is the black family structure. A brand new one without the old people around. But when it comes to these policies, we have to realize that both of these sides of this aisle are not trying to get rid of feminism at all. They're not trying to get rid of the family courts at all. They're not. So I like the video among coming in here. So what you have to understand is that the problem isn't whether black men can come together. It's about what the hell are we going to talk about once we do come together. As for me and me personally, I don't have a family, but maybe that's something that we need to put first. Maybe we need to put 50-50 visitation rights first. It's not going to affect me, but if actually getting something like that done can bring all black men to the table, so that way after that particular point, we can still be able to go back and go through the same system for something else. I think that's a good move. And most people don't get but one or two policies per lifetime. But you got to be able to maximize the chance that you get when them policies are in place. To be quite honest, we didn't maximize the chance we got when we got the right to vote. We was giving away our vote and we really didn't get much in return. So much to the fact that people became part of our actual legacy of what we actually built within the actual country. So you have to realize there's always going to be people who's going to come in, co-op movements, and try to shut stuff down. Like right now, there is a kind of a discussion going on within the space about how the space should be represented. And people don't understand because there's two different schools of thought here. The one school of thought is let it be represented by whoever. My school of thought is let it be represented by somebody who represents the actual ideology of the group. One side is here for entertainment, entrepreneurship, and one side is here for discussing issues and social change. One side of the argument want to come in the door talking about issues with black men and want to branch off and do their own thing, which is fine, but just don't come here to get your career started. And the other side is going back to the original point of why we was here in the first place. So that's what we're talking about here. And you really can't have like a substantive conversation about this simplistic point because everybody want to throw the word hater around whenever you're discussing the trajectory of things within this space, which is also fine. However, the realistic conversations about the things that are going on around here has to keep moving forward despite what these people say. Because whenever things do get done within this space, they're going to benefit too. And the first order of business is destroying the actual people hiding behind this brand called Hood Conservative. You're not a Hood Conservative. Tie City is a Hood Conservative. And if you're not a Hood Conservative, then you're not a conservative. The cultural point that he was making about that actual thing called the Hood Conservative, the original intent, most, if not all, black men can actually agree on that. Most black men can agree that being within music, you still got to pander to these women on one level or another if you're going to make it anywhere within the music industry. Most men are not flexible enough in their parenting to watch the actual Dwayne Wade thing go down. But if you don't have clear 50% control over the household and the actual kid that you have, you could very well end up in those type of circumstances. Aizen, you're right. Because the whole point of that was so that way you wouldn't be able to create a family. So that way you would accept lower standards in order to be a family with anybody. And once low standards rule the day, that's why the 1s through 5s are out here cooking out here with bags of dicks. They don't care. They're not trying to change anything. And actual women of substance get lost in the sauce. Checking for you, it wasn't a misinterpretation. It was an outright takeover of a brand that they didn't create to turn it into something that met their own needs, because they know they couldn't ride off in here without knowing any type of conservative policies. Neither one of these people live in the so-called hood, and none of those people who live in the so-called hood are actually conservatives. That's why the term didn't make any sense. But you need to make sure that you have a showing so that way you can get all the points out that they have, so that way they can't repeat, so you can line up on the horizon and march down and take this thing out. Because if this was Wheel of Fortune, there's no need to roll, because there ain't no more consonants left. And we cannot buy any more vowels. We know what we're looking at. We're looking at people who want to justify deaths of just black people, not whites, not nothing. I understand about them thinking that the world would be a better place if they took away welfare, but welfare just isn't a black woman thing. It's a policy that covers a lot of different things, most of which is corporate welfare. So by coming in and telling people that going to a party that doesn't support any type of interest at all, plus they're never going to ask for anything from that political party when they do get there, they're actually taking your actual productive vote off the ballot. If you're being huddled into a place where you don't have a voice and you're not going to ask for anything, your voice don't matter, which means the voices of the women matter twice as much now. When they can't even explain on their side that they're on what they're actually doing to change the exact same situation. And this is what I say. We're not trying to recruit anybody anywhere. We're just trying to make sure that we're all on the same page. Because I don't think any person want their kids growing up in an unstable environment if they decide to have a family. And some of these same people have child support. They're under the child support order and they don't even want to go and ask their party for anything because they know what their party going to say. So you have to realize this is how we go forward. We point out the bullshit and we just point it out. This shit shouldn't be allowed to happen. And I think we still should have conversations about what the hell we're going to change. There's really no rationale in not trying to move forward. You have to realize, when I see people in my chat say that voting don't mean shit, get the fuck out of my chat. Leave and unsubscribe from my fucking channel. Because I'm talking about taking some fucking steps that's going to make shit better for everybody. And if your ass have already quit before we have made any type of steps and strive to fucking get started, you're in the wrong goddamn place. For as much money that we spend in this fucking society to be getting nothing back anywhere is a fucking disgrace. So we're going to need to be looking at these political platforms where these people are. Because if people don't respect money, they damn sure respect numbers. People who are a solidified group, those politicians come to see them. They invite them in. They invite them in, because I've been to these things. They invite them in behind closed doors. They talk about their issues. They hand off a check, and the agenda gets passed later on down the line. That's how it works. Citizens United made it so that way everybody can make a backroom deal, not just some people. Because there's only two things you're going to be doing. You're going to be complaining about and simultaneously succumbing to the things that are happening inside the environment, or you're going to turn around and start participating in the environment. I guarantee you, if 100 people per day showed up to the Secretary of State's office and signed up to petition to vote, and the only single vote issue was having direct grievance and direct control over who works in the police department with subpoena power, it would make those people afraid. But actually going out there, showing up so other people can take your movement and turn it into something that you don't need it to look like is what happens every single time. We got to be better than that. I'm not saying everybody's out there to criminals, but we have camera technology where we can find out who's ever doing any of this crime at any time. There's no need to wait. You don't have to wait all this long ass period of time. They had damn good devices in law enforcement, even back in the early 2000s. I know that shit's way better now. So we can find out who threw what at what time if that's what we wanted to do. Yeah. And every single place looks different, but the issues still remain the same for someone. We still need to be getting off into these career fields to where we can be able to economically move forward without handing off half of your money to somebody who don't care about family creation. So I've been up here for a while. So let me drop the link in the chat. We can have a substantive conversation and then we can move forward from here. Because there's no clear reason in trying to misrepresent other people's stuff and try to turn it into something and then not be able to answer basic questions about your actual policies or discussions when brought forth. There's no real reason to let these people around who have this sort of mind state. It just don't make any sense. They're just in the way. They're here to sabotage the discussion so that way the actual black male power base won't even be able to form because they won't have any place in it when it does get formed. Now you see what the high emotion with no policies was all about. It was a smoke screen that never talked about the things that mattered. Things that matter. One thing is that trying to move forward on something that's positive isn't really all that happened. It really isn't all that hard. Hey, how's it going? Mr. Imp, what's going on? James Brown, what's going on? Art No Star, what's going on, man?
What's going on? But am I on?
Yeah, you are. Go ahead.
Okay, my bad. Yeah, I was in there for a while, and I got on the panel. It's Aizen, and Man, one of the things, to me that I mean, of course you can't do it without voting, but the main thing it seemed like some of the people were trying to get around was the simple fact because the women have power because of feminism. I mean, you just can't outvote them, and they're not going to vote against their own what they feel is their own best interest, even though in the long run it is.
But
Yeah,
you have to
sorry about that.
recognize that you don't need them implicitly. You don't need them at all.
Okay, I
Just
Yeah, sorry about that. I was on mute. But
oh,
what's up, everyone?
hello, Art.
don't just don't date. Oh, now this is the template of the people you're dealing with within the environment. Don't date and don't marry.
Dang. Miss GMOT Borgin out there.
Bill Morgan. I thought it
Yeah.
was me.
I did
All right, go
originally
ahead while
too.
I switch devices. All right. Yeah. Well, go ahead while I switch.
Anybody there?
Yeah, go ahead. He said go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, I just came to throw some support out there, man. I'm glad to see that people are seeing the same things I'm seeing as far as having a heart for your people compared to having a heart for the other side. Uh, that's the thing I always wonder, especially with policies, because that's the stuff that you put in place to make sure that people kind of cut down on some of the funny business. So I don't understand. I guess it's the newer generation. I don't know, but that was always something that you had to fight for. And you had to put people in a position to make sure that they champion your cause. Uh, I don't even think people read what they vote for when they go vote at all. They just go. They sometimes they go any, meeny, miny, more. They just vote whatever the person tells them to vote for. Because at first I used to do that when I finished high school, but my mother started making me read all the different propositions and different measures and stuff like that, and I started getting way more interested. And then also talking to the people that champion. I don't understand why people are, or if people are feel that that's not necessary.
Yeah, it's just that if we could listen to lyrics from songs, if we can watch, shit
Right.
within society, like how come we can't take a particular point in time to come out here to actually listen to the actual um, things that are being done within the environment and be like, oh wait a minute, like this ain't good enough for us because due to contrary belief, our government is being sold out by people by very little money. Like they're not putting down no hellified bread in order to get millions of dollars back for shit. Like they're not doing that. They're really not doing that. They're doing that stuff for hundreds and maybe even thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Art. My bad.
Oh, I'm good. Go ahead.
Okay, I was just
Uh,
gonna say. Oh, my bad. You got some MOT again?
no, my computer came unmuted for some reason and I didn't unmute it. But go ahead.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like I've always said, whenever it gets down to it, Black American culture always wants circumstances to change. They don't want themselves to actually change. So that's not actually going to make anything any better, which is why I agree with you about cutting these unproductive, bullshit ass people off. It pretty much needs to be a motherfucking fire set to it. I mean, it just is what it is, man.
I had to, because I was really identifying as far as how we have these exchanges, because I sometimes go back and forth with my father, not in a way like that, but some of the talking points from Fox, or, some of the I guess black gentlemen. I'm like, how come you're not having these conversations with the people from Fox or the people that think the same way, so you can build each other? I don't know why you have to always have to go where you. I don't know if they're looking for opposition or trying to do some selling, but I'm like,
No, I mean, like art. I mean, what they are is they are aggressive quitters. Like they want to come by and aggrieve the potential process of change by just telling you that you ain't gonna be shit and this shit ain't gonna happen for you. I don't see what the fuck this shit gonna mean. Shit. I ain't gonna vote for shit unless I get $1 million. I'm gonna hoard my vote. Well, I'm like, man, fuck you. Get the fuck out of here. I don't need
You
you
don't
around
work.
here.
You don't work. You don't eat.
Yeah, that's what it
Right.
is. Like, look,
I
man.
understand that completely.
The problem is, man, is that like we are afraid to be an exclusive group because we want to keep bullshit niggas around us because they're fun. I'm like, hey man, them fun motherfuckers are the reason why we can't fucking get no goddamn where. Because those fun motherfuckers are the people who are the most motherfucking compromised out in this bitch. Are willing to have any type of affiliation just so long as they cool with every motherfucking body. And you have to realize if your ass is too cool with every motherfucking body around you, chances are you ain't got no fucking core values of motherfucking self.
And the other part that I was
Yeah, I agree.
listening, and this, you know, I've been hearing this. I mean, I'm probably the oldest one over here. I've been hearing this all the way back from Larry Elder in the '80s. I mean, I remember all that, and I always remember that. And I heard you getting frustrated that they would try to take something that didn't apply to the conversation and try to make it stick.
Correct.
I'm like, dude, that has nothing to do with the conversation.
Which
And
is what a certain person was doing on David Monroe all today. And he does the same thing whenever he shows up to any conversation. And this is why I didn't want Black Uru Strikes bailing him out of anything that he fucking said, because it's his job to show up to the conversation to sell his fucking product. And when this motherfucker ain't got shit to do but disrupt and derail conversations and mishear deliberately the shit that he supposedly heard, like that's the type of shit that I'm just not with, man. It's like, bro, listen, man. You come here to a space that's talking about a very specific fucking thing, and you come up with generalized information. And I called his ass a couple times. I'm like, look, the dude heard what you said. He's just trying to find a way to misconstrue what you said. And when Bernard Raleigh wasn't moderating his fucking channel like he was supposed to, because he really agrees with that shit somewhat. But you have to realize there's a difference between agreeing with what a person is saying and understanding why you agree with it. Here's the deal. I don't like the fact that my fucking brand is associated with being with weak ass motherfuckers, or every time they turn around, you have black men there, like like the ones you've seen at the fucking RNC, are fucking criminals. Where were the decent fucking black men up there talking other than fucking Scott from South Carolina, which I think was a piss poor speech, and we need to go over that speech so that way you can know exactly what the fuck this dude just said, and why they're so liking of a person like Scott. But it's like, look, man, that shit don't represent us at all. What it does is destroys the fucking brand, and it doesn't make it so that way anything else can happen in society unless you want quote unquote non-threatening black male friends, and I ain't with that shit. Now we could go to that shit after you start treating us right in society. Well, than that, nah, man, I ain't with it.
but I
All
have
right,
to
MOT,
admit,
I got a question.
Yeah.
But go ahead, Art. You got something to say? Because I can hold this question in.
no, just real quickly, I have to give MOT a heads up. I took the exchange that you had on the rapid fire and put it on my channel, but I put some video footage of like a lot of people that got killed over the years.
Yeah.
So I let that play for about 3 minutes, and I just had showing like the whole Darren Dave, what's his name? Darren, I forgot. But anyhow, like Tamir Rice and
Yeah.
Oscar Grant, you
Yeah, man,
know,
like these people don't even care about that shit. They don't care. They just come up and be like, okay, we're not gonna give a shit about nope. I'm like, dude, bro, if you think the disrespect to black people starts at the motherfucker shooting us, you're wrong.
Right.
What about parole hearings? What about clerks and shit fucking with people's paperwork and shit? I'm like, dude, listen, if you ain't got like, this is why I say we need like a separate fucking system, just like the Native Americans have. Since America is so fucked up, we need to come up with our own fucking court system. Fuck this
yeah,
shit. Motherfuckers don't want
yeah.
to act right. Fuck it. Fuck it. You know
Wait,
what?
they can
Wanna
do
be-
that with the paperwork?
Hell yeah, you can do that
Yeah,
shit.
of
Well,
course.
I mean, I mean, you know, I mean, look, family court ain't no legitimate ass court system either. They have fucking U.S. magistrates who are not judges who sit on places and fucking actually
There
do
haven't been
actual
any real
judicial work.
judges since 1789, so I know about that as an actual fact. There haven't been any real judges since February 21st, 1789. But that's what a lot of people don't know about. I do a lot of reading about judges and magistrates as well. So just to add to the conversation.
Like like most judges in Mississippi and some of these small ass counties, man, like all they need is a high school diploma and just to be fucking
Oh,
voted in. I'm telling you, man, it's
Wow.
fucked up. Yeah, so what I'm saying is that you have to be able to separate and have our own system of checks and balances for ourselves. 'Cause we know we're gonna treat ourselves good, but we can't really depend on anybody else to help us treat us that way. What's going on, King Sigma? If you're still here,
Yeah,
is it King
stuff I
Sigma still
heard,
here?
brother. Yeah, the stuff I heard though, I didn't feel safe. Like I can't be safe,
Can,
bro.
can you hear me?
Yeah, I
We
can now.
can
Go
hear
Yes,
you.
ahead,
we can
man.
hear you.
We
Hey,
can hear
what's
you.
up, man? So, in regards to what the brother was talking about, as far as like the separate groups, Black Americans have to understand that we're part of a continuum, and that decisions were made. One of my favorite eras to study, man, is the Reconstruction period. So
Oh
that
yeah.
period between the end of the Civil War and the beginning of Jim Crow, that was a very critical, 25-year period for Black Americans, 25, 30 years, that generation, because everyone talks about the civil rights movement and Jim Crow as if it was the first time. No, it was a repeat of Reconstruction. After the Civil War, Black Americans at that time, Frederick Douglass being one of the biggest leaders, they sat down with President Lincoln and they talked about Sierra Leone, Liberia, Panama, and the state of Texas. So Frederick Douglass was very opposed. Him and some of the other more notable, ministers at that time, they were opposed to Black Americans going to any place. Now the Texas situation, that would have been the most likely outcome, but they assassinated Lincoln before it got to that last negotiations on blacks moving to Texas. And I've talked about the fact that if blacks would have moved to Texas at that time, like they were going to do, it was going to be like kind of like a black version of the Trail of Tears, and all the blacks formerly slaved, which was about 4 million, were going to be sent to Texas. Now remember, at that time, New York was the biggest state. Had they sent that congregation and that population of 4 million blacks to Texas, Texas would have become the richest black sovereign state probably on the planet if it would have happened. Because remember, this is before the oil was discovered, and all of that stuff would have came later. So you have to understand that decisions were made based on what the black quote unquote leadership class at that time thought was in their best interest. They didn't want to be identified as a different group. So they went forward with Reconstruction, saying, okay, we're going to try to integrate these former freedmen into the general society. Well, you have to understand that's not a one-time policy. That has to be something that's backed by a commitment to 100 years of consecutive policies. What they found out is that in the post-Civil War environment, those white people, they were cool with it the first couple years. Oh yeah, we're gonna do integration, kumbaya. We're gonna integrate you guys. But as the blacks started to become more successful, they started to get into political power. Then the whites started to be like, nah, I think we're gonna back off of this integration thing. And slowly but surely, they didn't put them back in legal slavery, but then they started Jim Crow. So then you do 86 years of Jim Crow. You come out of Jim Crow. Again, we come back to the reparations conversations. Should blacks go to Liberia? Do blacks need their own state and sovereign status of exemption like the Indians have? The black leadership class at that time said, no, we want to do this integration thing again. So what we're all sitting here doing, we're just doing another repeat of the 1870s or whatever and the 1960s all over again. And I just want to know, at what point do you black people want to get off this treadmill and make a goddamn decision? Okay? There's going to have to be sacrifices either way. If you decide to go to Liberia site, Sierra Leone route, it's going to be extreme sacrifices for 2 or 3 generations. If you decide to go to Indian tribe route and become your own sovereign state, you're going to have to be committed to like 2 or 3 generations of sacrifice. If you want to do the integration thing, then you're going to end up in a situation where, as we've already seen, that blacks are there as a group, as a majority, they are not prioritized anymore. We already know now that the Latinos, okay, they are being prioritized as a racial identity group. Then you have women, and then you have the alternative lifestyle. That's where the integration priority is going to go as things are today if they continue on that path. So black
it is,
people need to
man.
make a damn decision on what they want, bro. They got to make a decision.
Right.
Well, I already
You
got
have to
my
look at,
passport ready to go. Just send me down
wait,
when ready.
but you have to realize that this is across the board because it's not like the conservative position is actually doing anything for black people either. They're actually doing a lot of shit for immigrants as well because immigrants fucking pay. And they're not out there trying to make a big stink about it when they do become part of shit, which is like what we need to be doing. But it's like a lot of people try to stop the conversation from happening is because they want to keep shit the way that it currently is. And that's kind of what the big problem is. And it's like as much progress that I see that we're making right now online, I never even seen it in neighborhoods growing up. I've never even seen how much shit we could have got done or how much shit was actually squandered until I left that environment and went other places. I'm like, fuck, man. Could have really
Yeah,
did something with all that.
exactly
Really,
what
really
you're
did
saying.
something with all that
Like, a
shit.
lot of opportunity has been squandered because of individuals not having the kind of conversation that we have here. That's why I'm for an open conversation. I'm willing to listen to people in good faith and hear what their views are because again, we haven't solved the problem yet. We've been here 500 years as Native Black Americans, and we just keep doing this shit every 4 generations, bro. Every 4 generations, the same damn thing. Because nobody wants to sacrifice anything, but they want to talk about things. At some point, you're gonna have to determine on what you're willing to give up in exchange for that sovereignty that you want. That sovereignty is gonna come with a lot of responsibility. You're gonna have to weed out certain people from your groups. You're gonna have to establish like your own court system. You're gonna have to establish your own economy. You're still gonna have to trade with the greater society, even Native Americans, even though they're pretty much extinct. The ones that the elite Native Americans, they control an industry, which is casinos, and that gives them capital that they can invest in other things. Black people are gonna have to say what industries, if we get this sovereignty that we want, will we have the competitive advantage of from day one? What kind of relationships are we gonna have to create? So it's a whole lot that goes into like nation building, and that's why I always go back to the family element because again, the basic economic unit is the family. You guys keep, different dudes I hear have these conversations keep trying to sell me on the idea that you can fail as a family but succeed as a community and as a state. Are these dudes insane?
I'm
If you
listening,
can't get
man.
the family,
I'm
if you
listening.
can't get the family thing right, you're never gonna get a community right. And if you can't get the community right, how the hell are you gonna be nation builders? To build a nation, the first unit foundation of a nation is family structures and order. If you can't get that right, it's never gonna happen. And we need to
So it's
stop
not,
lying to ourselves about it.
That's not the
so,
first unit.
so
The
does it sound
first
like they're trying to have things both ways?
the the first
That's the
unit
question.
is the status of the mindset of the culture. You can't expect dysfunctional people to bring about functional ideologies and do anything functional. Crooked people can't do shit straight. I mean, there's no way it gets out like it. It's not going to happen. You
But where do
first
crooked
ask,
people get their opinions?
huh?
Where do you just said that crooked people? So think about what you just said. You said that the family and the household is not the basic unit, which it is.
Right.
That's
No, the culture itself is the basic unit. The
but where does
culture
culture come from?
itself,
What makes the culture though, Sam?
genetics.
Where does culture
Genetics
come from?
first. Genetics
Where does
first.
genetics come
Well,
from?
wait, hold on a second. All right, let's reset the conversation. All
Go
right,
ahead.
you have to understand that the reason why you can't think through a family because you can't team with the people who are currently in this environment. We're
Exactly.
not trying to build family power structure. We're trying to build black male power structure.
Right.
Because if you include the women at the first beginning, then you're including them as equals. They already
Exactly.
have their own power set. So that's why I say it really doesn't matter as long as it have black male control.
Right. Which is why I agree with you.
Yeah. So all this genetics and all that kind of stuff, I'm like, hey man, when they started the MAGA procreation war, we lost that shit. All right,
Right.
Yeah, we've lost
Right.
that war.
we lost.
That's what I'm trying to get at is that we chose a certain kind of culture and a social order that we prioritize and pedestalize in the black majority. And I'm not even making a judgment on it. I'm saying those people that want that structure, that social order, and that's the culture that they want to promote, you do you. But I'm gonna go somewhere else with the values that I think are important, and then I'm gonna always attract the kind of woman to me that has that same kind of value. And eventually there will be other similar units, family units that will be attracted to each other, and they congregate. It's no different than in like a religion or immigrant communities. You get one immigrant that moves in, they kind of like don't fit into that current culture. They start bringing in other immigrants that share their culture, and then
Yeah,
they
that's
bring
right.
in more, and then they have their own ethnic enclaves. And I think that's what's going to happen over the next
Yeah.
two generations amongst black men, like the ones that are, interested in this kind of conversation. They're going to just start building their own enclaves, and eventually they will have their own communities. But it's going to start off with the first person and the first unit, and it'll kind of build over time.
But
Yeah,
oh my bad. Go ahead, MOT.
and you have to realize, you have to get out of your head that with the success rate of women in this culture of, for me, is 1/10 of 1%, and the actual black men you can actually work with who ain't got this street shit slash hood shit floating through their fucking veins, it's maybe 5% at this point. That's what I'm talking about separating with. I'm not
Right.
trying to
Well,
rebuild this shit with all
what
these
is
other
the goal?
motherfuckers.
What is the goal to producing a constructive people?
Separate.
Well, to create a cyclical, cyclic system
Now,
based on, well, hold on.
question
You
is,
asked me a
how do you
question. Well, hold
separate?
on. Hold on. You asked me a question. I need to be able to completely finish it. The goal is what you create within this current generation to be able to have the same system that goes on to the next generation with better standards going forward. Right now, the standards are too low to try to do this with right now. This is why people are stuck on this skin color shit. I'm like, look, y'all should have been fighting this shit before the fuck nigga farms worked at like maximum
Well, the
capacity to
skin
fill this
color
fucking place
thing
up.
was
Yeah, they should have
imposed
been
on
fighting
us.
for that back
We
then.
didn't impose it on them.
You mean
Hey,
like skin color as far as
no,
colorism, or are you talking about race?
Race. It was
You
imposed on
mean
us by
culture?
those people who
no, that's
classify
fine.
themselves as white.
That's why you start with the mindset. The
Exactly.
mindset, then the people go afterwards. Because I really don't give a fuck about the color or the hue of nothing. As long
Exactly.
as my shit is being controlled by rational fucking people, I don't give a fuck what they look like. And that's not a hang up for me. Because we're already surrounded by the blackest of black fucking people and we ain't got no fucking results. So we can't pull the skin colorism thing as like an actual way of judging how things would work. We're just
Right.
normal, everyday black people within the society who actually want to have something better. And while you have like the relationship
I'm sorry
industry,
to interject, but I keep hearing echoes in my commentary.
from who? Nobody else is hearing that. I'm not hearing it.
I'm hearing it on my end. I'm hearing
I
MOT
don't
speak.
hear it either.
You might have to mute your feed
Yeah.
if you're still listening to the live stream.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, mute the YouTube feed.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Yeah,
I
you
can hear
sound
you.
better now too.
Thank you. I mentioned the color thing. We got
All right.
imposed with the color thing. Nobody imposed. We
Produce
got imposed
justice.
with.
Produce
Yes,
justice.
sir. Yes, sir.
There wasn't an avenue for you to start back talking. But let me
I'm
finish my
sorry.
point. All
I'm
right.
sorry
All right.
because I was hearing
And
a
so
bunch
what
of
we're
echoes
not
on my
going
end.
okay, so what we're not going to do is we're not going to talk about color anymore on this live stream. All
Yes,
right.
I will drop it. I'll drop it.
Okay. All right. So what we're talking about is having the mind state of black men. We know what the actual situation is for us here locally within the environment. As long as we're able to practice the same principles among each other, we can go forward with that. We need to have productive people. I don't give a damn if they X whatevers. As long as you're trying to move forward right now and create and build some actual other shit along the lines of a certain type of principle, we're moving forward with that. Bringing anything else along for the fucking ride is not going to happen. Trying to bring people along who are compromised by sex or fast money, you can't bring them along. They're their own group of fucking people. They're here to destroy what could be actually be done right.
Okay, I have a
But they're
question
here
for
under the
everyone.
gun. Who's that?
I think that was Produce Justice.
Produce Justice. All right, man. Like here's how we do things. I lead the discussion. People
Sure.
agree or disagree. You can't come through trying to question the entire panel. You're new here. All right.
I'm sorry about that. I learned that from the code book by Millie Fuller. You don't make a statement, you ask questions.
Yeah, you gotta raise your hand. There's a button at
yeah.
the side of the screen that says raise your hand.
Yeah. Some people don't have to because they've been part of the group for a while.
My fault, guys. I'm very sorry about that.
No, that's fine. All right. So what I'm saying is going forward, that's how we're going to be able to operate because that's the simplest way to operate within this environment. And that doesn't take a whole lot of investment per se on the people getting on the same page from an idea standpoint. But what it does do is it lays down a specific level of core value so that way you don't have to bring the level of compromise alongside with you.
And that's another thing I agree about too. I mean, without that level of core values, MOT, I mean that you have no way to actually separate those good quality productive people from the unproductive and toxic ones. That's the only way that we can actually move forward in the right direction.
Yeah, because like I said, like this is going to take a lot of people who are really not there. Like economics wise, I know that. But as long as you can take people who are not there and put them on an actual path, so that way that they can't get there, so that way they can choose. I think that's better than just trying to move along with people who are already there, because you're going to have to be able to make sure that this system can work from new people coming into it. So you're going to have to do that from the start as well.
Exactly.
Training process too.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, listen, every company you go to, you watch some cheesy ass fucking movies and all that type of shit about how the company started and all this shit, and you take a test. And if you don't act the way they want you to act within that environment, your ass won't be there. It's no different than what we need to be doing within this environment. Because once you standardize things and once people have a level of production to which they have to actually produce, and they have to actually have their actual jobs within the actual society and culture, outside of voting, outside of maintaining a viable family, it works better that way. It works better with a better foundation and using that foundation to go forward with, rather than trying to load up this actual concept with a whole bunch of things of the past that we can't possibly solve within our generation or our kids.
I mean, something else that I would add to what you're saying is that I know that you often say that you believe that most of the black majority likes things just the way they are. And when you look at the way that culture develops over time, the only reason for culture to exist is to meet needs. Everything beyond that is like a surplus, and that deals with wants, and that's how you get like markets and that go beyond just basic needs. And if a culture is based on meeting needs, and the people in that environment, let's say the culture that we're referring to, the black majority like it the way it is, there isn't no incentive to change it. So people got to ask, what is their goals? So if your only goal is basic on Maslow's pyramid, like sex, shelter, and food, and that's as far as you want to go, then your culture is going to develop around just those three basic needs. But for others that want to go up higher on Maslow's pyramid, they're not going to fit into that culture. So they're going to have to go get absorbed by another culture, or they're going to have to create their own culture. And I think that's something that people need to stop undermining, is that a lot of people are comfortable in the current culture of the black majority. That's why you'll have some that are, white supremacy, white supremacy. But then when you get into the details of it and you start asking them, do you really want something different than white supremacy? And I know people were talking about a poll that was done by some black women recently, where the black women had a majority said they actually prefer white supremacy over any kind of culture that black men are creating or going to create. That's very telling to me.
And that's why I say they're not. And that's why I say they are not and never have been a part of our group. If most of these women are interested in black men and follow black male leadership, there is nothing stopping from any of these women from going through the dozens of men in their phone to find a guy who's a decent guy, who's a productive guy to actually be with. That's just why I'm saying I'm building it without them. I'm building without people who's trying to keep this black family shit together. Because as hard as they're trying to fight to keep us in it, they did not fight just as hard enough to keep people outside of it from having all these fucking kids. We have to go to drastic fucking measures to reset this goddamn thing. And that's what I'm about. Resetting this thing on a proper level. At the end of the
So
day, a
what do
lot of
you?
these people want to negotiate.
Okay,
And I'm not
question
with
for you, Motley.
okay, I don't see who's talking. Who's talking right now?
Hold on.
That would be Mr. Aya. I have a question for you, Mr. Man
Okay.
of Tomorrow.
Yeah, go ahead, man. Go ahead.
So how do you
Then we're
propose
gonna
we
go
go
to the
about
guy.
that
Wait,
issue?
hold on a second. After you, we're gonna go to the
Sure.
guy with his hand up. Produce justice after you, but go ahead. And then Johnny Blaze.
So how do you propose we go about the drastic measures, because they're trying to uphold Billy Porter as like the sacrificial lamb, the black man, and I'm not appreciating that at all. I'm like,
Yeah, well, here's
why
the
is
thing.
Billy Porter of all people?
Here's the thing. This is why I say start with yourself. You need to be the standard. Like, don't worry about what they're trying to do. They are deliberately humiliating that man to lower the actual status and value of other black men in society. And they've been repeatedly doing this for a while. He's just the current person. If it ain't him, it's Young Thug or anybody else who does that type of stuff. When they know that's not representative of who we are and what we dress like and how we act. This is why you don't worry about what they're doing with their people. Because it's very clear that that guy is not one of our people who's not going to be part of what we're building because of the level of compromise, because of his, actual choice of attire worn on that day. So I'm not worried about those.
Thank you for your answer, sir. I'm going to put my mic.
Can I be heard?
Now I can hear you. Yes.
Yes.
Well, my question is, and I've been struggling with this since my existence on this planet. Why is it so difficult to get the black man and black woman in a constructive, productive relationship? Why is it so hard?
Yep, because society's in your bedroom. That's the issue. Every time you want to get together, you don't have two people holding hands, it's three people. It's always something that's going to always interfere with whatever you had set for greatness. It's always going to be that way. That's why MOT was talking about people are happy the way things are. But I mean, some of the basic things could be done within minutes, but people are not willing to do that because they want to hold on to the stuff that they think that's great, but it's killing us.
Well, I've been seeing the news with the Jacob Blake situation and re-examining that. It came to he was trying to break up two black females fussing with each other. And the question that went through my mind was, why has he got to break up the black females fussing? Why is there not a system of people there to settle disputes without calling these enforcement agencies?
You're talking about community. You're talking about community policing.
I'm just talking in general, like a code of conduct, because the way Mr. MOT is talking is there's just no hope here. Let's just separate from him and to hell with them. But I don't believe in giving up just yet until it's no longer.
You just made an interesting point to me, because you said, why isn't there some entity to break this up? See, this is where we get in trouble. Do you know that the most powerful thing is called self-policing? That's what Neely Fuller talks about.
That's what I was talking about. That's what I was talking about, sir. That right there.
Okay, so when Mr. Neely talks about a code, everyone seems to leave out the fact that he's talking about an individual process. His whole thing is about reconstructing yourself as an individual, and going along with MOT said, if you can get yourself in order, it starts with you. So the fact that those two women was fighting in the first place, they created a non-constructive environment and a dangerous and violent environment themselves. So again, in those communities, whoever's around is going to break it up. But the first person that's supposed to stop the fight from happening are the two individuals involved. It's because individuals themselves refuse to self-police that you have to bring in state enforcement. That's why
As
they were
Mr.
fighting,
Fuller said,
because they don't
discovering
have the
amongst yourselves.
because they don't have the discipline to stop from bringing violence on each other. In the most self-policing situations, people that do have a code, for example, I'll give you an example. You know something
Yes,
that
sir.
really struck me in undergrad, attending a Big Ten university, whenever we would go out, right, I would watch the
Yes,
way
sir.
that different people interacted when they got drunk. I noticed something about white people, right? I would see white dudes get into the biggest arguments when they were drunk. But you know what I would notice? It would take the hand of Satan himself to make them punch each other. Like two white dudes could be completely drunk. They would be talking to each other, yelling at each other, spitting each other's face, but for some reason, they could not bring themselves to bring violence on each other as easily as I would see black people. The same black dude, he will get into it. It could be a white person or a black person. He's throwing fists and asking questions later. But what I noticed with white dudes, they'd be shit-faced drunk, right? And I saw this dozens and dozens of times. And I would notice that they could yell at each other, they could curse each other, but they could not bring themselves to bring violence on each other, beat each other bloody, or to kill each other. And that's part of their own code of valuing their white lives. I don't know how they did it, but they had more value for themselves and didn't want to assault each other, even if they had serious differences. So it becomes a self-policing thing, and that's what Neely Fuller was getting at. Once you adopt the personal code, you're not going to involve yourself with people that don't have a similar code anymore. So you introduce them to your code. So let's say you're sitting on a corner and you're a thief, and you come up to me like, yo, bro, I'm about to go rob this bank. You want in on it? Could make like 100,000. Nah, I'm cool. I'm not willing to go to prison. So we need to separate, right? These people want to drag you into a culture that you don't want any part of because you don't share their value system or their goals. And then they want you to come save them when things go badly. That's what Neely Fuller was getting at. If people want to adopt the code that shares your values, they have a right to do that in their space. But don't bring me into your space if you don't have the self-policing mechanism. A lot of trouble can be avoided if you police yourself.
I probably would have to slightly disagree with King Sigma. I wouldn't use two white males because both of those white males are born into privilege. And so there's a different circumstance that they're going through that most Black people are not. If that makes any sense.
I mean, you could mention the privilege part, but I wasn't really trying to specify whether they were in privilege or not. You could be in privilege or out of privilege, but have a code or not have a code. I know white dudes that are just as gutter and dirty as any other person that was born in or out of privilege. I'm just speaking to the fact that in my own observation, I'm just giving you my observation. I've noticed that white dudes have more respect for each other's lives. Now, you could say that that's because of their white privilege, fine. But I've seen poor whites, middle class whites, and rich whites all act the same on this. Doesn't mean that whites don't kill each other and bring violence on each other, but I'm just saying it seems to me that they have something about them where they're less likely to bring violence on each other than I've saw blacks. Now, if you're saying it's because of the privilege, fine. But I'm just pointing to the fact that that is an observation that I've made.
Well, yeah, privilege is the common factor, right? I mean, we just had a world war where over or close to 100 million people were dead. And these are Europeans killing each other, right?
My bad, Mike.
Okay, well, I got a question. I got a question.
Yes, sir.
Because I see where this is going before we get off the rails. Produce justice. The type of discussion that you join, I don't consider Black women part of the Black group where we're going. Because if they were capable of going with us, they would be a part of this conversation. They would be in the chat. Given that there's nobody here, it's you who's trying to bring the potential of Black women along with us when that's not the point of what we're doing in this discussion. I didn't give up on anybody. Their decisions and what they did within the environment made their decisions for us. We were not supposed to build a better and brand new society and then bring them along for the ride after it's built and completed. That style of thinking failed us. This is why we got all these babies within the environment because they thought that other men was going to go clean that up for them. This is why they deliberately made things worse for everyone because they thought that they were not going to have to pay for the consequences of their action thanks to the skin color that they brought along for the ride. Now, what they didn't do is they didn't bring a level of principle along with their skin color along for the ride. That's why their ass is being left outside the tent. We can find other counterpart women other places. What we're trying to do here is move black men forward and build black male power.
Right.
If you add the wrong type of people when you're building a foundation, it weakens the foundation. You clearly seen what that poll was from Madame Noir. They rather pick white supremacy. Who was actually going into black women's spaces and making them respect black men? Nobody. But black men always come into black men's spaces to make us try to give a shit about people who don't give a shit about us by their own admission. So you have to understand that during this conversation, we're talking about moving forward with black male power so that way we can actually move forward with actual peace and order. Now bringing them along for the ride unreformed because they're not within the conversation here. They are around they're around the relationship conversation, the game conversations. The reason being, they get the most out of those conversations. They don't give a shit about moving forward. They give a shit about their own power. And it's time during these type of discussions that we give a shit about our own power. That's what this is about. Do I care about the black family? Yes. Can I affect the so-called black family? No. Can I build something within my own generation that's going to support me and people of my lineage that I plan on having going forward from now? Yes. That's what this is about. You have to realize that what we're doing here is not in spite of the black community. We're doing it because of it's the way it is. And the shit test of thinking that we can't go on without them is a test that we need to make sure that they fail wholesale. So that's what this discussion is about. Moving forward with us, the people within the society and life who want to move forward. Everybody want to concentrate on other things. I'm totally fine with that. They have their own environments and shit. I'm just trying to stop people from building themselves up from the manosphere, which is supposed to be a place for men to get their shit together. That's why I'm doing this stream, so that way we can start stomping down these actual places where people are hiding behind and co-opting shit. So when I have these types of talks, this is actually the point of the talk. The point of the talk is not so that way women can have a better man at the end of the day. I don't give a fuck about that. They got infinite choice to men. If they wanted to be there, they would already be there.
So from what you have explained, and I thank you for explaining to me pretty well, because yes, I do feel that as black males, we're sort of left out of the discussion of everything. We're sort of like treated as second-class citizens by our own females. And then those same females complain about when you yourself, or just you as a non-white person, male person in general, decides, well, I'm not going to stick around here because there's nothing constructive here for me.
Produce justice.
She doesn't find me.
Produce justice.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
This is a 900 level course that we're having here. What you're having is a 100 level course conversation. We're past that already. Way past that.
Well, as Mr. Fuller says, sir, I'm still learning.
Okay. All right.
And that's what I'm trying to do.
All right, that's cool.
Is learn.
But it's just that maybe you have to learn without asking so many questions, so that way you can get the feel of where this is going, rather than trying to introduce all these concepts that were passed during the conversation as it goes forward. I think that's just fair to everybody else on the panel, because we've been at this thing for a while, sometimes years, multiple years, for most people on the panel.
Well, sir, I'm a rookie, so I'm just trying to get on the manosphere.
All right, cool, man. All right.
Yeah,
Johnny Blaze, go ahead, man.
Hey, how's everybody doing? Am I
What up,
coming
Jay
through?
Blaze?
Oh,
Yep.
not too bad.
Audible.
Hey,
Fully clear.
all right. Let me see if I can just kind of bring this thing back around. I just want to just tell it. I had a incident happen this past week at work. I had a young man. Basically, I had to kick out of my program because he was trying to cheat on the test. Black male. He didn't prepare himself, and we literally caught the guy cheating. One of my professors actually videotaped it. We ended up confronting the guy. He tried to deny that he cheated, saying he hadn't started the test. My thing is, dude, you want to see the video? And then, of course, he backpedaled. The bottom line is, here's a young man. I've been having to like literally light a fire under his ass for the past 4 weeks to get him to do his work. And then, of course, he calls me. I threatened to kick him out last week. Oh, no, I'm not trying to play you. I'm not trying to play you. Guess what? You just got caught. Like you said, MOT. And there are certain folks we just cannot work with. This guy, he don't have the skills. He didn't put in the effort. His mindset is whack. So I had to cut him loose. I tried to work with him as best I could. And the sad part is this guy, he's a veteran and he's also married with 2 children. He had kids very, very young. He's a young guy. And now, of course, he has no time to study. His wife is kind of supporting and holding him down while he's going to school. It's all about life choices. And I'll concede my time right there.
All right. Thanks for the Cash App, New and Aizen. If I didn't say that out loud already. All right. So
You're welcome.
who's next?
I guess I'll go. Yeah, and that was a great point to add. I mean, it's just time, and the only way forward for us to become productive, as you stated, and MOT, is that I mean we have to move our productive men that want better. I mean, it's one thing to not have quite developed the skill set yet, but it's completely different to not have the mindset of wanting to be better and practice those principles. And I think that's the most important thing right there, having someone that's practiced and showing those principles, but they're on their way there. I'm done there.
Yeah. Yeah. And for me, I'm okay with people failing and coming back because I think you learn a lot from failure and walking in an abject disaster rather than cheating and end up getting your ass thrown out of school or being on some academic list or some shit that's national that could really mess up your reputation going down the road. So if you
Yeah,
don't
because
put the proper time in, you can really mess yourself up in a whole lot of other ways. Man.
I just want to add too, over the years, and then definitely listening to different spaces, I don't think we think big enough. I mean, some of us think humble or they don't really think that they can accomplish big things. There's always a little something in the corner or my little hustle will get me this. I'm like, don't you understand that if you put enough work into, certain things and you gather the right people to put things together, it can be done, but you got to put in the work and you got to have the education to back it. And this is not rocket science. It's been working for years. I don't know why people are running from this. Like they want to do the cheat sheet or the cheat code or whatever. I don't know if you guys can hear me because I have a mask on.
No, we
We
No,
can
I
can
hear
hear
mean, no,
you.
you.
we can hear you clear. We can hear you clear.
Okay.
Shit, shit, I'm wearing one as well. So go ahead.
So, but yeah, that's my biggest concern is because I know we used to think that way, but I guess the whole thing, and then what's crazy now when we talk about the women, they have way more opportunity to think big with this whole Kuhn Miller Harris and all these other people. They have these opportunities. I'm like, okay, well, since we're pretty much the lowest on all these different things that they're trying to make us out to be, then we need to use this time to really gather up, like you're saying, and you know, whoever has specialty, make sure you freak that shit out before the wheels fall off. Make sure that you really, really, you know, don't just leave too much room for error because that's what it's going to boil down to. A lot of people say, well, people make mistakes. Yeah, but you learn from them.
Hmm.
You make sure that, okay, I did this, never again. So right now it's 2020. A lot of people made a mistake, so you don't have to. You can learn from those. It's like, hey,
I mean, that's what I can add to this conversation, man. We have to think bigger than what we normally think.
Well, I think you're pointing to again, see, and that's why these conversations they still always go back to the parenting. Maybe I'm a person that places a high value on good parenting versus bad parenting because I've worked for the state and I've dealt with the court systems before and seen families going through things. And when Art mentions the whole thing about the education, that comes down to your father, your mother, your aunts, your uncles, your grandparents, and the adults around the child. Are they reinforcing the value of education, or are they reinforcing the value of sports, entertainment, television, tea sipping? See, we can't escape this whole thing about the environments that we're bringing children up in, because it's on the responsibility of the adults that bring children into this world and those that are given the responsibility of rearing them as guardians that have to make a decision on where they're going to place the value of education. And I know because I remember when I was struggling with mathematics in like the fourth grade, and I just happened to be having a conversation with my aunt. She was over visiting my mom. My mom wasn't concerned about no math. Her whole thing was just like, go sit down and watch, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, or go here's some money to go to arcade. It just, for her, she just wanted to make her children happy. But my aunt was like, oh, you're struggling with your mathematics. I'm going to get you signed up for the Urban League. So she forced me, my aunt, to go to like the Urban League to get my mathematics in order for like, 2 or 3 months. And it was one of the best things that happened to me. But it's because of the values. My mom placed a higher value on her children being happy. She just wanted us to be happy. So if buying you some shoes or buying you a video game, she just assumed that the school was doing their job. But when I expressed to my aunt that, I was kind of struggling, she signed me up for the Urban League because for her, she placed a very high value on education. So it still boils down to the type of environment that children are in and what kind of values that the adults have. And somehow we escape this for some reason. You can't put the responsibility on the schools. They failed. The public schools, for the most part, have failed, and it's not all the teachers' fault because you got a teacher who is getting paid whatever they're getting paid. They come into a classroom with 50 students, and they're unprepared because again, it's not a absolutist thing where the schools are just responsible for the education of your children. Most of the education starts at home. It starts at home with a child that we see this with the cultural capital thing, right? Like you got one child who grows up in a family who his mom's a lawyer and his dad's an accountant, right? Guess what? Those kind of professions require a lot of continuing education. Before this internet model and everything was online, you could take an example of that couple who had 2 children. So if I'm their friend, I go into their house, their mother is going to have a whole library, a personal library, not the public library, not the school library, damn near every legal book their mom already had. They came into an environment where the value of a legal education was already expected from day one. Then you go into the father's home office. He has all these books on CPA, continuing education, how to pass CPA. And I'm talking about from birth. This was the environment that these children were in. But then you got the other child who's in a more disadvantaged situation where let's say he comes from a working class environment. And so you don't have in many of these families that respect for education and access to knowledge. And somehow we just, I don't know, like we want to ignore it, right? We want to ignore the fact that the cultural capital begins with good parenting. You can't get around it, bro. So what people want to do, they want to put their responsibility on the quote unquote community, but then the community is not responsible for educating your children. They're there to supplement what you're doing at home.
And if you're doing nothing at home and you're supplementing it with kind of something in the actual school environment, and then you get a kind of sort of educated child, a kind of sort of result rather than a proper result on both ends. This is why the cyclical process can seem like it is working depending on the household that the person comes from. In some places, it doesn't seem like it works at all based on the same modeling. So what we're trying to do is create a baseline so that way we can have a model to create and pass and carry on. Because we know most of these people within the environment cannot be worked with, which is fine. But at the end of the day, if our gender is disintegrating before our eyes, we got to take drastic measures to maintain who and what we are outside of the system. That's what this is about. That's what this conversation is about.
Right.
That kind of goes back to that charter schools is a big conversation now. And a lot of people don't know that a lot of the charter school system and the open school system started because of a lawsuit in the early 2000s with the NAACP in certain states like my own, where they were finding out that these schools, even 50 years after Brown versus Board of Education, had become so segregated, and that you were getting situations where the most talented black students were being forced into this like politically correct model of schooling where they say, well, keep that smart black son or that black daughter in that group of dummies and special ed children, and forcing these parents who didn't have enough money to send their kids to private schools, or they didn't live in the right zip code, their children were stuck, even though they were the most brightest students. So what happened, the NAACP around the year 2003, 2004, they did another lawsuit that would have been on the level of Brown versus Board of Education, but the Fed stepped in quickly and the states went along and opened up the school system so that you wouldn't have to be limited to schools that were not in your zip
School
code.
choice. School
Yeah,
choice.
you had open choice, and then you also had vouchers where, like, let's say MOT, a young MOT, he gets like a top 10% score in his state. The state will pay for him to go to any school within a reasonable amount of distance, and they'll pay for that. But that was something that a lot of those in the community didn't want. The states and the NAACP had to fight for the top talented black children to have access to those schools, because a lot of that stuff is based on property values and where people want to live. So the schools that are the better are going to be in those places where people actually want to live and raise a family. That's why you don't want to support regressive and trashy behavior in the communities, because you're driving out the productive and competent people who will say, you know what, I can't raise a child in this zip code, so I'm gonna go over this zip code, and those resources go with them, the businesses go with them, and then you're on this this cycle of poverty. But we don't talk about that. The businesses are gonna go where the educated workforce are, depending on if it's a corporate business or if it's more industrial based. But if it's more of a corporate base, oh, they're gonna go where the educated people are. They're gonna base their companies there.
Created
Yeah.
on and as a norm, like Denver and like a Austin and all that. Like they're not trying to wait 5 or 6 years down the road. They want to see that this environment is creating viable and productive people on average, so that way they can end up within their organization. That's kind
Yeah.
of the way that goes. All right, let me
Yeah.
go to Mike V.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Mike V.
A piece of sorry, piece of the panel and piece of the chat. Yeah, about the education piece. If you look at a lot of the technocratic societies like Singapore, China, and some of these other European states like Germany and whatnot, they kind of have a top-down approach to doing all this. But if you look at some of the African proverbs, where it says, each one teach one, or it takes a village to raise a child, the community always played a significant role in the rearing of the children itself, even from an academic standpoint. So I don't think that it's out of the realm that you can actually do something like this without the consent of the parents. The Boys and Girls Club and some of these other nonprofit institutions have always played a significant role in all this. At least in the North, it has. So I'm saying that I think there is something to be had from a community standpoint where you can actually play a significant role. It really doesn't matter at this point whether or not it's a two-parent home or not. It doesn't really matter.
No, not at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, this stuff
Yeah.
is far gone with how they're trying to categorize things and acting like we don't matter. So we just need to take them up on their offer. Maybe we don't matter. Maybe we need to matter more to ourselves than they are with us being along with a part of their group. And Doc Phoenix, welcome to the panel. Thanks for coming through.
Yeah, how you guys doing this afternoon?
Good.
All right, you.
Yeah, no, I just had a couple points I wanted to make about the education piece and that social capital piece. One, if you, for example, I think this is apropos given the environment. If you look at the current CDC director, it is not by accident he's the CDC director. If anyone knows his background, his parents were scientists at the NIH.
Yep.
And this is important for a couple reasons. One, the NIH is generally the direct feeder into the CDC. So a lot of the scientists, the epidemiologists, the physicians, the nurses, and stuff like that, the folks that are over at the CDC, a lot of them were at the NIH prior to going to the CDC. And so he is a graduate of Georgetown. And again, his parents are both scientists. Were both scientists at the NIH, and that's important for a couple of reasons, because studies have been pretty clear about the pedigree of a parent versus the pedigree of a child of the offspring. So parents who are typically educated, their offspring themselves are typically just as educated, if not more educated.
Facts.
That plays out across the board, whether you're looking at folks like Mark Zuckerberg, you're looking at some of these folks in the biotech industries, folks like Elon Musk and stuff like that. These folks come from backgrounds where their parents were scientists or they were engineers or whatever the case may have been, and so that very much influenced the circles that these people have been able to move throughout their lives. And two, this mentoring piece, I'm just gonna be real frank about this. I've done that stuff in my life, and to what King Sigma was saying earlier, he's right in that regard. But the problem with mentoring is that mentoring cannot replace the need for good parenting.
Oh no. The mentoring piece, that was Mike B. That wasn't me. I'm for.
I'm sorry. My bad. I apologize. So, Mike B is right. I'm sorry. Mike B is right. But the thing is that mentoring cannot replace the need for fatherhood, cannot replace the need for just good parenting in general. Most of the time that a child spends is not in the school, it is outside the school. More than 70% of what happens to a child in their life is a direct result from the environment that they come from. So if you look at the correlation between, let's say, prison inmates, black males who are prison inmates versus the number who came from single mothers, for example, there's a direct correlation. It's roughly the same percentage. About 70-80% of your black male inmates came from single mother homes, which again correlates to the fact that you have roughly about 70, almost 80% of black children being raised in single parent households. So I mean, and in my personal experience, I used to mentor in biochemistry, in biology, and anatomy and physiology, man. And I kid you not, man, when it comes to a lot of black folks want a lot of this crap for free, man. And I'm sorry, I can't do that no more for free. Because what's that?
Yeah, and just I wanted to add on to what you said about that cultural capital piece, because I did a whole stream about 6 months ago where I literally went through all the stuff that you're talking about, where I looked at the top 100 corporations and I looked at the top 100 startups in Silicon Valley over the last 20 years. So I went through all of the founders. Shit took me like a week because I was going through all the founders. I wanted to look at their bios and see how they got to where they were at. And everything that you said was proven. A lot of people don't know who Steve Wozniak is, right? And he helped Apple. He was one of the co-founders of Apple. And to fit into what you're saying, his father was a Hewlett Packard or an IBM engineer. These people didn't just, we don't get that part of the story from the media for some reason, because I think that they want to sell the idea of like the self-made 100% man, which is very rare. And that's because of its rarity, that someone that came out of poverty and someone that did it on their own, that's why that kind of story, that Horatio Alger kind of story, is so fantastic, because it's so rare. Most people that become something on that level of a startup founder or a corporate founder, they actually came from parents that did have some kind of grounding in some kind of white collar or some kind of high level mechanical. And Steve Wozniak, I mentioned him because I was just reading the bio on him and how he started. He was the one that was the mastermind behind the personal computer. It wasn't I think it's Steve Jobs. Is that what it is?
Yeah, Steve Jobs.
He was the marketer. The developer, but Wozniak was an engineer.
Yeah, Wozniak was the creator and the engineer. And then, Jobs was, the developer, and he worked with the salesman. But it was actually Wozniak that was the brains of it all. And his father was an engineer who at a young age had taught him about the value of engineering to change lives. And he said that so once his father had told him that, and was showing it through his own work, he made that his life goal was to use computers to change lives by bringing what was technology that was mostly limited to universities and corporations because of the size of computers. He wanted to make computers small enough that every household could have that kind of access to information. But it was cultural capital that gave him that big lift.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
wanted to
correct.
add into this if I can, if anybody can hear me.
Yeah, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, and plus I'm just started my administrative credential program, so I will be sharing some of those experiences. Um, but and then before I make this statement, I make a disclaimer. If you're doing plumbing or electrician and all these other kind of things that are trades or whatever, nobody's trying to talk these people into going to college. Okay, because people get kind of bent out of shape when we diminish the whole education uh, conversation. My thing is about you know for those who going into professions that require these this education. And what I've been noticing, and maybe I sound like a broken record, but like when it comes to black boys, that have these high potentials, leadership, whatever it is, they usually talk down off the ledge when it comes to going to higher education, where you have the black girls. It's like, you go, girl, you go for the prize. And I've
Yeah.
been noticing that for the black boys in all different directions. They get it from their teachers, their counselors, their parents, everywhere else. It's always like people are trying to keep the black boy in a box. And so most of these boys that are getting into college, they're fighting the odds. They're not listening to them, and they're just going forward. And I'm just wondering whether or not, if anybody else see this, because I see it, from where I work.
Oh yeah, all the time, man. All the time. All the time.
Yeah.
And my issue is, you know, I don't know what it's going to take, but a lot of us, see some of our young boys, whether they're teenagers or whatever, we see the potential in them. I mean, do we just not say anything to them, or do we encourage them to say, hey, you should do this. Here's some brochures, here's some booklets, here's some people that I know that you should talk to. I mean, are we doing this enough as brothers?
Well, my personal take on mentorship is that if you're going to mentor someone, they have to at least demonstrate that they can meet the very minimum here. Because even in an academic environment, you do not get mentored by professors unless you can demonstrate some form of academic excellence. And I think that, again, I get the idea where they're black and we black, and we have to help everyone out. We have to help black males out. But unfortunately, we live in an environment where it's just not feasible, where you have to devote every time you see one, you save one. That's just not feasible.
You know what's
So
sad
you have
about
to.
that? Not to interrupt, fam, but what's sad about that? Everybody else don't feel that way about their own creed. We're the only ones that say this. But go ahead.
Well, because part of the problem is that once you get past the raw talent, there's usually other issues there. And,
Yeah,
and
I always hear that too. Yeah, I hear that a lot too. That we're the only group, but that's not what I see out here. That's not what I see out here. I think that, again, and it seems like every conversation kind of comes back to this when you talk about the Native Black Americans, because we're such a unique group. You have to understand that our situation is so unique because the dynamics at play in other groups is just not the same as it is with Black people, because of how we came about in this United States, and everything that's happened to us. It's just not the same, because those
Wouldn't
groups.
there be an urgency then, if that's the case?
But okay, so then here's the question. All right, let's go. Let's talk about urgency, because this is good. Now, Souls of Black Folks by W. Du Bois, right? We're going back 100 years to what he was saying. Nothing that we're saying on this panel, if you go read Souls and Black Folks right now, not even a long commentary, but he talks about these same kind of dynamics that we're dealing with now that he was dealing with 120 years ago, which, again, he ended up expatriating America and died in like Ghana somewhere. One of our great elders thought that the situation was, he died right before the signing of the Civil Rights Act and all that stuff. But he ended up like expatriating, man, because he was saying that after all of those years of being a freedom fighter, starting the NAACP, he didn't feel like there no progress had even been made. And it would have been interesting to see now in 2020, comparing when he died in 1963, I believe, what he would say about now, because we know that the Washington Post just 2 years ago put out and they're a liberal organization news outlet, said that Black Native Americans have made zero progress since 1965. So the question I keep asking about is, if W.E. Du Bois couldn't solve this shit, Martin Luther King couldn't solve it, Malcolm X, how is someone like me gonna do what they couldn't do? So wouldn't you think something different that's never been tried has to be tried? Because again, the sense of urgency, damn, we've been here since 1530. It's 2020.
Well, here's the issue on that, if I can answer that, fam. Because these were, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you.
These were individual guys. They weren't a collective.
Yes, they were.
I'm serious. Because you just mentioned a name.
I mentioned Du Bois because he was a leader of a movement. He created the NAACP.
Right.
He wasn't
I get that. I get that. But the thing was that it was a sector of his belief system. Whether it is when we're talking about other people, like for example, if we're going just with the Asians alone, we got Koreans, Japanese, Chinese, whatever. Most of the time, with the fact that they say that we're Asian, we're going to do something together. That's how it's like in California, and they don't even like each other. And that's what I'm saying is that, and the other part too is that even though we're saying that, I mean, what I'm hearing is this, is that, okay, well, it's not about, what do you call it? Commonalities or culture or whatever. It's mainly about getting the job done. I agree with that. But when it comes to dealing with the competition, they don't see you in the same light. So therefore, when you have to deal with you have to make sure that you have enough people in your camp that you'll be able to fight the war. Because what I'm hearing is individual talk.
I'm not hearing individual talk. I think that when we talk about the numbers, I think we forget how big the Native Black American population is. You got to remember, Art, we're 40 million deep. So
but
even
we're
if you talk about, but then even small groups can make a lot of success. Small groups
doing it now. They're doing it now, though. Small groups are doing things.
Yeah, and I agree. So when you say you're hearing individual, that's not what I'm hearing. What I'm hearing is individuals who are saying we need to form small groups around a new value system. That's what I'm hearing. But maybe the other panelists.
But the small groups are the ones that you're talking about, where people are saying, where people are complaining about not moving far enough because people are doing small groups. They've been doing small groups for years. So now it's time to start thinking more big on a larger collective. But the
have
thing
those
is,
small
we got to find. Let me finish.
But now you got those small groups succeeded, though. So that's the question. Have those small?
I'm saying is that you got to create a roadmap for that, because some of the things that we tried, it didn't work because everybody's trying to include everybody in the group, and I think everybody on this panel can agree that you can't put everybody in your group.
No, you can't.
So now you got to start working. So now you got to start working on putting the great people together. That's what the whole thing is about. You know, the people that can do the work and the people that's not really, being degenerates of your community. Those are the ones that you're reaching for. The thing is,
I agree with that.
The thing is, so I'm like,
we got a couple people holding who had their hand up for a while. Let me get to them. I don't want them
go ahead, y'all.
Disrespected or anything. But Aizen, go ahead, man.
Oh, I thought somebody else had. I mean, my question is, did I just hear that correctly? Where somebody was trying to say that, we've been trying things one way, but why should we try things a different way and think they're going to work? I mean, the whole definition of insanity is trying things the same way, expecting different results.
No, you misunderstood. I said the exact opposite. I said that we tried things one way. We need to try it a different way.
Okay. I did. That's why I wanted to ask a question. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, cool. Mr. IMP again. Mr. IMP going once, going twice. All right, Johnny Blaze.
No.
Okay, all right, go ahead, man.
I appreciate everyone that's been on this panel. A lot of brain cells are firing right now. Thanks for the information. Here's my question. Now, I am planning on doing some of the things that you guys were saying in the chat. The question is, how much money would I need to save up in order to like drop everything after I've got everything paid here in the United States and then just living in like Africa or somewhere like that?
Whoa, wait. Like that's not the movement that we're forming.
What?
The movement that we're forming is being. Yeah, it is. Like what we're trying to do is be self-sufficient by ourselves, create a framework to where we go forward individually. Like what you're talking about is 4 or 5 steps down the road, like after you retire and you have a family and you have your stuff together and you want to leave. Like that's totally far afield what the conversation is. I mean, that's a good conversation to have, but that is like way advanced. We need to be able to get these people on the ground.
Well, maybe Mike D can answer that question. If you talking about moving to Africa, you got to talk to Mike D about that, bro. I don't know anything about moving to Africa. You got to talk to Mike D, man.
Yeah.
All right, I'll do that when I get the chance. Thanks. I'll give my time.
Yeah, but I think
that Johnny Blaze, how's that case? Johnny Blaze, go ahead, man.
Hey, I was just curious. Somebody was made a suggestion about teams and whatnot, coming together, and this kind of reminded me of an old Air Force thing. I don't know if you remember MOT. We used to do those things called Tiger teams, where we would look at problems, and that's what it sounds like. And I think you've kind of mentioned this in the past, developing some team like that.
Yeah, that's actually that's actually what I had it based on, because I used to do a lot of policy and procedure type of reframework when I was in there, and it was amazing how a couple of sentences in a paragraph could save thousands or even millions of dollars, and if not change the whole outcome of an entire process. Absolutely. By analyzing it from beginning to end, as if you're thinking 20 years in the future from right now. Because most of the processes and procedures that we practice, they have been thought about or talked from the 1980s till now, not now until the future. So it's like these procedures, what we're trying to do to create a new system, is something that we have to rethink about right now, so that way we can kind of go towards the future. Because one thing that Black America is missing more than anything else is an after actions report, or a midlife review, or a quarter life review, to kind of make sure that you're on track and on topic for what things that you actually want to do. So yeah, that is where that concept came from. Was the Tiger teams, in Air Force.
Yeah, because I look at like a lot of these panel discussions. I see these things more so like just big, brainstorming sessions. An idea gets thrown out and we kind of go round and round with it. And I want to give credit to like Mike V and Complex in particular with the Black Brain Trust. It's an archive of all this information that we can definitely go back to and kind of reference and put a lot of that information forward.
Yeah, it's just that now, at this point in time, is that we got to start moving in a couple of new and different directions, because things are coming down to the point to where we don't have enough time to sit and talk. Now it's all about the actual, here's the plan, you're going to do it. If you're not going to do it, then don't worry about it. Because everybody else is going to be talking about relationships forever, which is fine. But
please no more relationships.
To be over there. And that's fine. It's just that we need to go along and do our things and put the numbers up on our board, because I don't see those type of conversations kind of moving it forward for Black men already. Those are Black men who want to accept the same level of circumstances, kind of where they are. It's not a good thing. It's a bad thing. Those people are making individual choices for what they want to do with their lives, and we need to make them for our lives. We're just a different team of people who's doing something a little bit different, so that way we can have a better result. That's it. That's the only thing we're doing. It's not that big of a deal.
Okay. Well, I did want to say one other little funny thing, man. The dude who I caught cheating on the test, man, this dude ended up scoring a 39. Is
that good or bad?
No, that's very bad. Out of 100.
Yeah, you cheated with the wrong person.
Okay, damn. Oof.
That's like that's an F plus.
Cheated with the wrong person that was failing the test too.
No, man. All the ones he got right were the ones he used to cheat with. Everything else he missed completely.
Did he at least get his name correct? Did he get his name correct?
Just barely.
Oh, wow.
But I know that I remember Art, he was trying to say something too as well. So.
But we'll go back to Art. Go ahead, Mike B.
No, it's Dr. Phoenix first and then me.
Okay. All right, Dr. Phoenix, you go first, then Mike B.
Yeah, no. I just want to make something really clear because I think we can't get caught up in the idea of saying that, you know, by not establishing just minimum standards that people have to meet. Again, if you're in a collegiate environment, you have to meet a minimum standard before you even get mentored. That's just how it is. Even if you're considering other groups of people, those folks have already met that burden. Again, we can't just say, well, you know, we have to do this because we're black men and we have to save every black male that comes across us. Because
I
again,
don't think nobody said that though, fam.
I'm not saying, just listen to me, because that is pretty much what came out your mouth. But what I'm getting
No,
at,
I didn't. The words minimum standards and bypassing minimum standards did not come out of my
I
mouth.
didn't say you didn't say minimum standards.
Okay,
That was
just
my
letting you
words.
know.
Those were my words.
Okay, all right.
My
All right,
point
go.
is just simply my point is simply put, I have brothers that I've met in this space that I personally work with offline. Brothers that talk to me offline that I personally work with, helping them trying to get into medical school. And so, but again, these brothers that come to me, these brothers already have degrees. Two of them are engineers at that. And so these brothers have at least demonstrated that they can get something done. And that's what I'm getting at. Because I've done this mentorship before. I've done plenty of mentoring, and black folks simply don't want to pay to get your kids right. You don't. They will not put the kind of money behind their children like all these other groups will to make sure that their children are successful in these in academic programs. Period. They just won't. And so my rule of thumb with mentorship always will be, black folks are going to have to pay. If you want to see the outcomes, you're going to have to put some effort and some money behind it. It's just that simple. And it's not going to be, we're going to do this just because it's because we're all black here. That's just not feasible. It really
Sorry about that. Sorry about the MOT, but I had to address that because he's putting extra words in my mouth. I never said that just simply because you're black.
Okay.
Let me finish,
Okay,
fam.
well
Let
that's
me
fine.
finish though. Let me finish because I feel like I'm being misrepresented. But
I started
I
off by saying
understand.
this is my
I
opinion.
understand, but let me make the point first, and then you can do what you have to do. But I'm not saying stuff like just simply because you're black, you have to bypass minimum standards and all that kind of stuff. My whole thing is just trying to make sure that you're around for your people that are trying to strive for excellence. That's all that was. That's all it was.
I have no qualms against that.
That's it.
So
All right, go ahead, Mike B.
Yeah, yeah. I think we kind of left off on the Black Brain Trust with the idea, or at least the intent, at least for myself, was to create a BCPOA, which is a Black Comprehensive Plan of Action, very similar to what the Europeans, the Americans, and some of the Russians and Chinese came up with for the Iranians. A multi-point agenda to actually solve a critical issue. And I think that now is the right time to actually do something like this. I think that we have enough brain power and capital, human capital on this within this sphere to actually formulate something. In a very short span of time before November.
Yeah, that's actually what I want to do from this point forward. So that way, this is something that's totally new that ain't really been tried before. So that way, you can kind of measure the people who are actually on the actual path to actually changing, and do kind of the shows based on the fact that people who are already in the program, so that way people can actually see other people's progress and they judge for themselves whether or not they want to exercise the same thing within their life. So that is a very good framework, and that's a very good idea.
Yeah, I just also want to comment on your display on Bernard Riley's. I came in late into that live stream, and we have to take into consideration that the miserable liberals are out to do the same thing to the manosphere what they're accusing Antifa and BLM of doing in the streets, and that is to cause chaos within the social space. To I guess force everybody to hear them, because the actual political party, the liberals, won't listen to them at all. And so these people were never conservative to begin with. I mean, we can just look at their whole entire agenda, who they support. The conservatives started for them. Conservatism started in 2016. In reality, the conservative that they do support is actually a liberal, and they're liberals themselves. That's why they support him. But there's a lot of cosplay going on within the manosphere of conservatism, and so what I saw on that panel was somebody who went back into a corner to talk about policy. They could never ever actually produce one single policy outside of LGBTQ and feminism. That's the only thing they could actually talk about. And really, those were initiatives that were supported by both log cabin Republicans and those on the left. And so, it's a lot of backpedaling going on and a lot of Hollywood shuffling going on in this space.
Yeah, I agree. It's just that when you come in with standards from the first beginning, it's kind of hard to let people run amok like that when you got standards from the first beginning. And when you lack those type of standards from the first beginning, this is how you have the kind of entertainment entrepreneur kind of hiding among the actual ranks of thinking class men, and all of a sudden they want to kind of try to take the movement into a direction for themselves. And it's like, that's not why we're here. Is to talk to people that had nothing to do with the mission of the actual project in the first place. And it kind of actually exposed a lot of people. Exposed a lot of people who actually are here for the money, and they don't give a damn about the actual moving forward for people. So that's the way it is. So it's not much you can be able to do, except for just watch it be um, put up front and forward and just move from there.
Yeah, I mean, 70%, I mean, you know this, MOT, but 70% of logistics in this country is transported by 18-wheelers. Okay, I think another 20% is moved by freight train.
Yeah,
there's a lot of opportunity to start getting some of these guys who have a clean or somewhat of a clean record to actually get their CDL really quickly and get some vehicles on the road, and actually create a policy that's going to allocate some federal dollars so that they can actually start picking up some of these rigs from these auctions. And so we can start getting these owner-operated operations off the ground.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mind doing it because you can move to any one of these towns in the middle of nowhere, buy some land, go get 4 or 5 old rigs, and just have a nonprofit organization that sponsors people on that do nothing but just train them, and then boom, they're on the road making a couple grand a week. They already got a place to stay and a place to live, and they already got their money. They're doing their own thing like that. You find them, people that they could deal with, and just go from there. You can separate and do this stuff. It's not really all that difficult and hard. You can do that with relative little investment nowadays.
Yeah. How long does it take to get a CDL?
3 weeks.
Wow.
Oh, that's a quick time. That's a pretty quick turnaround.
Every 5 years.
Yeah, because you have to. I mean, the way the schools work, you have to have a certain state amount of hours. I think it's like 1,000 hours or something like that. But it really comes down to passing the test and passing the skills test. But on paper, you need to have like 1,000 hours. That's why they make you work 12 hours a day, 3 weeks, Monday through Friday. So that way you can kind of get those hours under your belt. So, yeah.
Can I say something really quickly? Because I think this kind of goes to what I was saying earlier. Back in December, Mike V and I did like a 4-hour live stream where I talked about brothers getting into healthcare, for example. And there was only maybe about 30, 40 brothers or so that showed up to the live stream. But that was 4 hours of me giving my own personal experience, but also walking brothers through the whole process. We went to the American colleges, the American Association of Nursing, colleges of nursing. I didn't do the one on medical schools. I had to do that one of these days. But I talked about that for over 4 hours. And so the idea is that, when you talk about education with Black men, especially in this space, it seems that, a lot of folks start to shun it or whatever. But, something to be said about education and getting into these fields where it does require certification and licensure and stuff like that, is that these are not for the faint of heart. Like there's a certain level of perseverance you have to have. You have to have intestinal fortitude, because these things are marathons. This is not some 400-meter race. These are marathons. It takes years to get there. And so that's why it becomes critically important about making sure people meet these minimum standards. Because
The
you can
question
spend.
is, go ahead, Sam. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Say what you got to say.
As the question is the hunger there?
But that's what I mean. If you can gauge hunger through people willing to meet those minimum standards. Because that's what I had to do. I did we did a stream where I talked about brothers getting into the McNair program. That Mike V did a stream with Nagone and myself, and I talked about, it was almost 2 hours. We talked about me being a McNair scholar and how to get into the McNair program and how I struggled to get brothers to become McNair scholars.
And they be having some fun. Those McNair getaways be real fun, boy. I went to one before in undergrad. I got it with this that I was in undergrad. We went to like a McNair conference, and that was fun. It was like a 3-day conference. That was pretty fun, man. They think that it's all. What's that?
Oh, go ahead, fam.
Oh no, I was just saying that the McNair scholarship like conferences that they have, where they bring in people from different states together, that stuff is fun. Like everyone think it's just like all work. It's a lot of play to it. They actually make the pursuit of excellence very fun with those getaways, man. They bring in men and women from all over the country, and that it's pretty wild at those little retreats they be having.
Yeah, shout out to McNair, Omega Sci-Fi Fraternity Incorporated. Go ahead, y'all.
No, go ahead.
But I'm just, but yeah, I mean, that's the thing that I think that needs to be encouraged overall is preparation.
Again, preparation begins in the home. That's the fundamental problem.
I mean, we're dealing with in the inner cities, and especially in the school districts, we're looking at over 60% of our Black children in group homes. So when we have that in group homes, over 60% in group homes, over 60%.
60% in group.
Over 60%. Matter of fact, that was given out like maybe 5 years ago. So I'm just being generous.
About this before about some of the volunteering I did at homeless shelters. For the folks that are familiar, I talked about being in Milwaukee because I technically live about 15 minutes from Kenosha, and I talked about the experience I had just doing health screenings at homeless shelters in Milwaukee, and how most of the men that I was seeing were Black men, and pretty much all of them were working age Black men. Where I think the youngest I saw was probably about 18, 20 years old, something like that. And the oldest I saw was around 55. And the problem is that I don't know the brother that was just saying that, but he is right. You're dealing with a huge percentage of Black children, specifically Black males, who are in group homes. Many of them have already began to experience homelessness early in their teens.
So I was just saying that in the response to your. I'm sorry, fam.
No.
When there's a pause, I think that the jump in, but it's okay.
No, go ahead.
No, is that a response? Because I've been hearing that whole thing about parents for years being responsible, but a lot of teachers gave up calling homes because it's always the social worker and or not social worker, but the foster parent, and more than half the time the foster parent don't give a what. They just want the paycheck. So it's like, okay, like we have that parent part. Yeah, but the parents need to be responsible, that 40%. But what about that 60%?
Now, Art, from your experience, and Doc, here's a question that you guys kind of raised in. How do those children end up in the group home and the foster homes in the first place? What's the number one reason why children end up in foster homes and group homes in the first place?
That was actually what I was gonna ask, but
Yeah,
So I guess
it goes into like, I mean, when you talking about statistics, or you just want to hear the
I
children's
just want you to
stories.
tell me. I'm trying to understand the root of it because I like getting to the root of things. So like you were saying that the parents aren't there, but the foster home is it comes after someone gave birth to that child.
Yeah.
A man and a woman gave birth to a man helped make that child. A woman gave birth to him. So the question becomes, how do we get from the biological parents to this unbelievable rise in children ending up in foster homes and group homes? What is the number one reason that those children end up in
And
those group homes and foster homes?
drugs, drugs. That's the number one reason. Drugs.
Oh, for real? Okay.
So, and
See.
then they're proven to be unfit, and they take the kids away from them. Some of them are either arrested, dead, and then the second one is incarceration. But mainly it's drugs.
I'll say this much: there is a brother that I have been talking with offline that I know through Black Brain Trust. That he comes from a similar environment, and in general, he the point is that he has demonstrated he wants something, and so I have no problem working with those folks, but again, it is very hard given what I do in the limited amount of time that I have to really sit down, talk with folks and certainly talk with people offline and certainly walk them through a process of getting from A to Z. That time is very limited because again, my time is limited. So yes, for me at least, it has to very much be that, you know, Black folks are gonna have to do something. Black folks are gonna have to put something. You can't just expect folks who to go out here and do these things and go to school and get degrees or whatever, get into professions, and then just expect them to come back and just give back like that.
And part of that
Something.
number, oh, I'm sorry, I keep making a mistake. I was gonna say part of that number is a lot of children being raised by their grandparents because the parents are just,
I mean, look, I've been in healthcare most of my life, and I see that time and time again. I just this past year, I normally deal in adult medicine, but this past year I've been dealing in pediatrics, and the some of the craziness that I'm seeing with 2 and 3 and 5 and 7 year olds, I've never, certainly something I've never envisioned, at least when I was that age. But the stuff that I'm seeing with young pediatric patients is just is insane. I'm seeing kids at 5 years old that have elevated lead levels that are 10, 15 times normal. Kids that are so sick from lead poisoning that they have to go get immediate chelation therapy in the ER.
And let's go back to the foster care system for a minute.
And so let me finish. Let me just finish this because I bring this up because this is fundamental to ideas about, when we talk about culture, family planning is a huge part of that. It really is. And I think Black folks do themselves a disservice by having children in very desperate situations.
Bingo.
Bringing children to this world, then expecting a certain group of people to somehow shoulder this burden, making sure these kids are successful throughout their lifetime. To me, that's a hell of a burden to carry.
That's
Wait, hold on. Well, thanks for the Cash App, Lady Dandos, for the sizable Cash App. Thanks so much. Go ahead, King Sigma.
No, I'm saying I'm just glad that Doc mentioned that because I keep trying to tell people if you can't get the basic unit piece right, you can try to ignore it. It's like a variable equation, right? And the most important number, you just leave it out of. You say, okay, the A is a number that you don't know what it is. Then you got B, C, and D, but everyone just keeps leaving out A, and they think they're gonna solve the equation. The family planning piece is so important and critical to this whole discussion. Because if you mess up there, pretty much everything else becomes tragic after that. Because the decision that you make in who you're gonna lay down with and what children that you're gonna bring into this world or not bring into the world, that makes all the difference. That's all so that part right there, I mean, again, it just seems like it always comes back to that family planning question, and and no one wants to deal with that piece. Or they say, well, we
But
brought
that's
this
been
kid.
going on for years, fam.
Oh yeah.
It's been going on for years, but where has it got us in the last 60 years? So let's go. So Art, you say it's been going on for years. Where has it
Hmm.
gotten us in the last 60 years? Then
I don't think
tell me.
anybody's championing it. It just is one of those bleeding, stop the bleeding type things that nobody has really solved yet. It's a problem.
I think
So
we're way beyond that point right now.
Yeah.
Because I
So
mean,
that's what MOT is trying to say is that we do have a solution to it. Doc just gave you the solution. The solution is to have proper family planning. You should not be bringing children into this world without doing a cost benefit analysis on your budgetary constraints for at least the first 10 years of the child's life.
Brother
Because we know
King
that.
Sigma,
Go ahead.
that's not a new solution. They've been saying that for years too. So if
But
you're
they
dealing
have
with this in
they have
2020, how
though.
would you be able to
Okay,
step it up?
they've
What
been
would you add
saying
on to this for 2020?
okay, they've been saying it, but have they been doing it?
and I think that's the key point because the
We can
fundamental
agree
problem is,
that both have never happened.
yeah,
Really.
no, and I would agree with that. I agree with that 100%, Moti. And I think fundamentally, what happens is certainly, at least for those that are in healthcare, and you can ask anybody that's in healthcare, especially those that deal with pediatrics, they would tell you the fundamental issues that children have are coming directly from that family environment. So whether it's children that live in homes because they're impoverished, they have no internet access. I mean, this has been a big problem during COVID-19, where a good percentage of Black children have no access to Wi-Fi services.
And he talking about Wi-Fi. Let's talk about prenatal. I've been reading into this whole prenatal
Brother, I did
and
a 4-hour stream with Mike V on maternal fetal health back in December. Mike, you
yeah.
can do that.
So we can even start there because this is why the financial planning and the family planning is so critical. They got records and studies that show that at the prenatal level, the disparity between poor and middle class and rich people's children starts in the womb, right? So
Oh yeah.
in the prenatal stage, the environment that the child is in, the nutrition of the mother, the stress levels of the mother, all these things from the very before the kid even comes out the womb, the disadvantages have already begun because of the kind of nutritional environment that was created for the child, the kind of stress or peaceful environment that's created. So that's why the financial family thing, planning piece, to me, that's the more important than anything because it's bigger than starting a business. It's bigger than trying to start a school. When you set out to start a family, bro, you got to think in terms of what is your financial outlook for the next 5 to 10 years? Are you going to be in a position to provide this child with an emotionally stable environment? Can you bring stress-free environments for that child while the woman is in that 9 months? You got people that are just laying down, bringing children into this world, and they don't think about none of that shit. It's
You know
just
where they're being
That's
born?
starting
In
to
the
stop,
foster.
Sigma.
Okay, well, hold on a second. Hold on. Let me go to Aizen.
Okay.
That's what's going on, Aizen.
All right, what's going on? I had, I know I heard somebody say earlier, talking about the importance of pushing the education and having parents pay and stuff. I think there's also something else to kind of look at is the simple fact of some of these parents, they probably don't have an aptitude of being able to tell if their child is going to be that what's the word I'm looking for? Intellectually inclined to be able to pursue that. So, I think it's also important to be able to notice which ones are and push them in those fields, and then those that aren't would be better, for them to be looking at trades to be able to get into, because there's no point in sending a child to college that, just doesn't have the mental aptitude and interest or ability to be able to do such. That was the point I had.
I think a lot of them.
There's some truth in that. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I just want to respond to him by saying that a lot of these people do know because again, Art's a teacher, he's a professor, so he knows that. I remember being back in like the 3rd grade when they first started doing like career testing, and by the time you get to like 8th grade, the counselors and they have records of your talents, like your strengths and your weaknesses already. So by around the 8th grade, because they do a lot of testing where in the 8th grade they decide on what high school you're going to go to, and based on your performance you get offered like starting at the top tier rank schools going down. So a lot of those families, it's not like they're ignorant of the kind of strengths and weaknesses their children have, even just coming from the external information they get from the schools themselves that keep track of this information of the children from kindergarten to about the 8th grade. So they know if they're weak in reading or they're strong in mathematics. The career counselors, you already start doing those little career tests in grade school where they're like, well, you might want to be a farmer. They're already telling you in like the 3rd grade. And then if you don't want to be a farmer, that pretty much is supposed to motivate you to start getting strong in your science and your English and all that stuff, so that when you take the 8th grade exam and you go on to, because I know in my state, we have programs that when you go into your 9th grade of high school, where they already have them in like mechanical school, pre-nursing, pre-law, and pre-med, they do already have those options there. And that kind of inventory analysis is available to the parents. It's just that a lot of parents don't give a fuck. Let's just be honest.
Let me
Well,
piggyback
look,
on
I'm gonna
real
keep
quick
this.
because I didn't get
I'm
a
going.
chance to speak. Let me piggyback, fam.
Well, wait, hold on,
I'm,
hold on, hold on, hold on. We got Mr. Imp with his hand up, and then we're gonna
okay.
be done with the hands up kind of thing, and we're just gonna have a free flow
About my
conversation
phone
from now.
here. All right, fam, go
All
ahead.
right, all right, go ahead, Mr. Imp.
Okay, here's my question. Thanks for the conversation. You're firing up a lot of cylinders in my brain cell right now. I appreciate this conversation we're having. So, is this a myth or is this true that you need about $250,000 just to raise a child in American society?
That's the last number I've heard. 18 years.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say too. Like, I know that couldn't be true. That's why I didn't want to bring a child into the world. That was my
No, that
main
is.
reason. Like, it doesn't. I know it doesn't cost that much.
It's about 234 to 250,000 if you want to give them an entry level middle class lifestyle. So if you don't care about the kind of like lifestyle you're giving them, then you could bring a child into this world and be broke and just be on welfare. But if you want to give them an entry level middle class lifestyle, that number is around 250,000. It's between 13,000 and 16,000 a year.
Okay, that's what they
Well,
didn't
even more.
say online. They left that part out.
Well, I think is again when you're considering the cost that it takes for a child to be competitive in today in this world today. I mean, you're looking at the minimum amount, as King Sigma said, at least 250,000. But ideally, you need closer to $1 million. Because I can tell you right now, I went to school when I went to University of Wisconsin. I went to school with white folks. Their parents just threw money behind them. These kids were perpetual screw ups, but they still graduated on time because their folks were able to throw tens of thousands of dollars behind those kids, getting those kids caught up during the summers. So when everybody else is off doing whatever they do in the summer, those kids were getting caught up, and they still managed to get out in 4 years. And I don't know if anyone looked at the actual national statistics for Black students in undergraduate and the time it takes for them to graduate. You're looking at between 5 and 6 years for your average Black for your average Black student to get out of undergrad. That's assuming they even get out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Okay.
would say if you were, for example, Cindy, my kids mostly attended private schools, my two daughters, private Christian schools, and I paid considerably more than 200,000 each,
Yes.
from when they entered school until when they graduated high school. We're not even talking about college. So, I mean, which
I mean,
it's
right
a
now,
lot more expensive than that if you're really investing in your children in
Yeah,
today.
that's an investment. But let
no,
me
no,
get in there if
absolutely.
I
Because right
can,
now,
because this is my last
go
time
ahead.
speaking, and I'm gonna get out because I don't think I get a word in. But
All right, cool.
I've been doing this. I've been teaching for 25 years, um, and I'm at an adjunct professor as well. I pretty much see what's going on before they even get into the profession. I'm just gonna let
Mhm.
everybody know a lot of counselors are trash. I'm just gonna be honest, man. Counselors they suck. They
What, like
really
school
suck.
counselors or like
School
counselors for
counselors,
like?
college and
Oh
college
my
counselors
God.
and school counselors. The
I
see
agree
because
Wow.
100%.
the reason being, you know, some of your state colleges and things like that, they pretty much have that at the push of a button. So a lot of them want their students to fit in there. If they don't fit in there, you're not college potential. If you have to do some extra work, like send them to Yale, Harvard, or whatever, they'll pick their top 5.
That's a
Right.
damn shame.
I'm pissed. I mean, I've been looking at this for years. Now, when parents come in, and I think a gentleman was talking about how a lot of parents don't know the potential or whatever. I think parents should be vetting the counselors. You know, how many students have achieved under your watch? You know, how many students have really done well under your guidance? You'd be amazed of the answer. We had a counselor that got sued for $4 million in my district because she did not put, I gave it away, she did not put a student in a class that was required for her to be into a college program. You know, I mean, when you have parents that, so that's going into Dr. Phoenix's piece. When you have parents that know their rights and step up and be, responsible for their child, then it kind of forces the hand to do right in education. But going back to the foster care system, we got millions of students or millions of teenagers, top or whatever. They're all in the system. So, they're not sitting in there just waiting to do right. A lot of them are learning all their bad habits there. So when we talking about all these people being, making babies and all that kind of stuff, it's not just the people that have parents. It's a lot of people in the foster care system right now making babies right now. Lots and huge numbers. It's not a small fraction.
You
So
said foster homes?
foster home. Oh hell yeah, foster homes and group homes, all of that. They're doing all of that. Now, while all that's going on, the caretaker and all that collect the check to the 18.
But
So
see, I would expect that from a foster home or a group home, because again, going back to the family piece, is that no one is gonna love you as much as your own mother and father are supposed to. I don't care what anyone says. I think that your family is that first nest of love, and if you can't get the love from your family, the chances of getting it in the general society, I actually expect that those children will end up being abused.
what I'm trying to
Because
tell you, fam,
yeah, go
it's a
ahead.
repeated cycle.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
It's a
I mean,
repeated cycle.
I always considered foster care as state-sponsored child abuse. To be quite honest with you, because
And
there's
it's
really no
sad,
checks and
man.
balances when it comes to that kind of stuff. Like, especially
But
like you would see like these kids, and, they would be like in a high school or like a military installation, and by the time we're talking to them, we have to like go and like arrest the parents and like take them down there to go pick their kids up, crazy stuff like that. And then like the kids would like end up not being in the United States, and then you'll see that referred to some type of foster home or something like it. It's crazy because if they can't be taken care of or they're thrown out of those armed forces schools, then they have to leave the base kind of situation. And if they're not in the United States and they're overseas, they can't just have to leave and go back to the States. They end up with grandparents and they're not really well looked after. And, they kind of just get lost in the system like that. So, yeah.
Hey, MOT, I just wanted to share my screen real quick, if you don't mind.
but I see you guys later. But I have to roll. But I
All
want
right,
to say
cool.
that last
All right,
thing.
later, man.
All right,
Appreciate it.
All right.
man.
All
Hey,
right.
good
Bye.
talk.
Thanks for coming through, Art. Hold on.
Yeah, MOT, can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to share your screen. Share.
I can share my own screen.
Okay. All right, go ahead.
Oh, it says the host disabled participant screen sharing. You just got to click on my name, and it should actually allow you to enable screen sharing for me.
All right. Awesome.
You know what MOT does, I do want to bring up something very
Ask to start video. Ask to start video.
No, ask to share screen.
It says ask to start video. I don't know. Let's try to see what happens. Well, actually, let me make you the host and see what happens there.
You can co-host me, actually.
Yeah.
Let
Go
me
ahead.
let me share this real quick. This only take a few seconds. I want the Black conservatives to pay attention to this. This is from 2013. How good job policies can reduce Black-white wealth divide. Okay, policies. You can't talk about being a conservative without talking about policy. Okay, just want everybody to see this. This was written in 2013. So you can't run from policy when it comes to these sort of discourses about on the right or the left. What is your side doing to advance the ball further? I'll drop the link in the chat as well after this.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, like most of these parents be having these AFK babies, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, look, you know, you can make sure that you don't team up with these people because this is a team sport. And if you pick a bad teammate who's just going to do nothing but just sperm jack you and just shittily raise your child, or even for a woman on the other side, you know, you just got to make sure that you care more about these circumstances than the time that you're putting in for the time that you're trying to get out of it before you stop. The way you can stop having these type of circumstances go on. And a lot of people don't understand the type of power that they have and choice, even though it's trying to be diluted by the new people who've come into the environment to make money off the space, so to say. Yeah, so
That's why I
all right, go
believe
ahead, Dr.
arranged marriages.
Oh, me
No,
too.
no,
Yeah.
and you know, look, you
Let the
know,
best guys get the best women. Let the most productive black men have access to all the women with no kids. That's my solution.
you know, again, you know, I wasn't, you know, I just want to make something really clear, you know, for the brother that just left. You know, I'm not saying what he's saying isn't wrong per se, but we really need to get to the root of the problem here. And the root of the problem is that it's family. Again, family planning has to be a critical component of quote rebuilding Black society as we know it. It really does. Because ask anyone that's in healthcare, and they will tell you if they're dealing with pediatric patients, 90% of the problems that the pediatric patients have aren't just physiological issues that you have to deal with. A lot of it is those social issues, those socioeconomic issues.
How do you
have to deal
fix
with the
the
fact that
family planning issue?
I'm sorry, say again.
How do you fix the family planning issue?
Well, I mean, you do it with our generation going forward. I mean, you know, you
No,
can't deal with the
specifically,
people.
what specifically do you do to fix the family planning issue?
First thing
I
that you do
mean,
is you wear a condom. The first thing that you do to fix the family planning
Okay,
starts with
but black men, as a percentage, are the highest percentage users
they're
of
the highest
condoms.
users of
okay.
condoms.
And then the next thing, I'll give it back to you, Doc. I just want to say the next thing would be that the women got to respect and protect their own body. You got it, Doc.
They're not going to
Well, no,
do that.
and
Free
there
birth
are some
control.
fundamental
Everything
ways
that
to
exists in the current social political paradigm does not require them to do that, King Sigma.
But
Oh, I'm
here's
not disagreeing with you at all.
Here's the problem. Here's the fundamental issue: is that yes, women are the controllers of sex. They are. Women are the vanguards of a society's values. So, one, men do have to be very discerning about who they decide to sleep with and ultimately who they end up having children with. Two, and I said this on the discussion that Mike V and I did back in December of last year when I did that 4-hour discussion about maternal fetal health, where I was talking to the one woman and she spoke about how she was able not to she didn't have to work. She chose to work while she was pregnant, but she didn't have to because of what her husband did. And that's the fundamental difference.
Yeah, you actually on that live stream, you actually had varying amounts of thumbs downs to that live stream, and you had a black woman who came on there and said, "Why are you all talking about this?"
Yeah,
as a disruptor.
But yeah,
what did she mean by why are you all talking about this?
Because the whole purpose of the discussion was discussing specifically the disparities in maternal fetal outcomes among Black women versus everyone else.
No,
to what King Sigma was saying.
I'm asking to explain the response that Mike stated. Why would a Black woman respond that way?
Because we have no right as Black men to speak about Black women's issues.
And why is that? Because the law permits them to do that.
Because it's always black men's
Because
fault.
black
women
men
are
have
not held
no
accountable.
reproductive rights at all. No
Yeah.
actual codified statutory common law reproductive rights at all.
The
But I
Once
think,
only
I think that
once
goes.
conception occurs, or once ejaculation essentially occurs, we have no rights at all as to what happens going forward from that point.
But
that's
I
why
think the part that we miss in this discussion is that there's a few things we're missing. One is ultimately these men did not just end up in these relationships with these women or end up in those situations. There does have to be some level of onus put onto men choosing proper women to actually sleep with. There has to
yeah.
be some
But
level
you can
of
choose
accountability.
what you believe to be a
It can't
proper
just be,
woman.
well, the legal system and women's ability to circumvent reproductive rights of men is the problem.
Mr.
No,
Phoenix, I think it's because
the argument
There has
I
to be
would
some
make is
fundamental level of culpability here, because
the argument I would make is if you're not talking about increasing and expanding the reproductive rights of men with respect to, specifically with respect to financial responsibility for unwanted pregnancies, knowledge and or lack thereof regarding abortion. If you're not talking the specifics about increasing or expanding the reproductive rights of men, you are not going to at all address any of the problems.
See, I disagree with you.
Okay, let's just put this on the
Doc,
table.
let me just interject real quick before you go. I just want to interject on what you were saying, because I'm saying this is what I'm trying to get at. If how many examples of men being destroyed by the family courts, divorce courts, by these DNA companies, at what point does the black man, and I think that black men are waking up, and you know how I know? 53% have already decided to be childless bachelors, and that rate is growing by the day. So what I would say to black men, if you can't put the onus on the women, because they've already made it clear that they don't respect their bodies on average. They don't care about what comes out of their body on average. In fact, they will try to use childbirth to trap men that don't want to be there. So my question becomes, if men are supposed to be logical, if they're supposed to be problem solvers, at what point do you say, I have to place the ultimate price on my own seeds and DNA, and I have to be willing to contain and have some sexual discipline about the women that I share that DNA with, because you're supposed to feel that if you're a man of quality, then you should feel that you should only match with a woman of the highest quality. So,
but as long as you allow the women to descend into madness and degradation, the population of women for which you might be inclined to reproduce will lessen and lessen and lessen to the degree to which there are virtually no women that are worthwhile. And this isn't just a black woman's issue, although obviously we're black men, so we're most acutely
this is more prolific among black women.
This is a issue that transcends black women. The numbers and percentages of women overall that are engaging in reckless sexual behavior, that's engaging in non-marital reproduction is increasing overall. This problem is expanding.
But
I think it's worse for black women personally.
But the environment is changing, though. I get what you're saying, Black. You're 100% right, but you are seeing backlash as well. That's why you're getting a situation like Tommy Loran coming on her stream and saying that men are trash, because a lot of it's invisible to the public, but a lot of men are pulling out. That's why you get the Tommy Loren who's complaining, because they're doing what you're saying. They're embracing the decadence, but they're not willing to live with the consequences, because a lot of the men that they're saying we're all the good guys, these dudes are just going into, like, they're doing the SYSBM. Some of these dudes are on the MGTOW thing. Some are going black pill. These men are pulling themselves out of the situation, and women are more and more feeling it. And we know this because how many days go by now where you don't get some kind of known woman? I'm talking about even at the celebrity level, women that were definitely hot in their 20s, where they're complaining because they're in their late 30s, 40s, and 50s, and ain't no men choosing up on them. So the environment is changing. And you've even seen it politically. You just had Joe Biden come out and say that he's worried that black men are going over to Trump. He just came out, his team just came out and said this on Friday, that they weren't worried before, but 60 days before the election, now they're like, yo, black men is not embracing our feminist agenda because it doesn't have anything to do with straight heterosexual black American men.
You say he's worried, but what actual policy effect will that manifest?
We won't. Here's what it is. We won't know until they actually have to not be in a position to
there
take.
There will be none. He'll say whatever is necessary to be said to try to
but I'm not
black men to vote for him. And then as soon as he gets in there, he will continue his pro-feminist.
Wait. We're not turning this into that type of discussion. This is getting far afield. I don't give a fuck about what women do. All right, I don't give a fuck about what.
We're not talking about women though. We're talking about men.
No, I know. Men should not care about women not choosing them or any of that other shit. None of that matters. We're talking about where we're going to be, not how politicians are going to react to us making our own decisions.
And that was actually that was the point I was going to go to. What I was saying was the premise of what you started out this stream with, MOT. Again, if there's going to be some effective, if there's going to be change that black men are going to affect, it's going to have to be that black men they begin to coalesce around a common goal, a common agenda.
Well, I mean, that's why I said earlier.
But again, you can't do that. Hold on, let me finish this. But again, you can't do that if you it's hard to, I ain't gonna say you can't, but it's hard to do that when, again, you have individuals that are more focused on trying to get men with black men and black women together, stuff like that. If the goal, at least some of the streams I've heard in this space as of late, you're trying to get black men and women to talk to each other, them days are done.
Well, I want to make one last point before I get out of here that builds on what Doc Phoenix just said, because I was thinking the same thing. Here's my last comment, man. I keep hearing brothers talk about that for arranged marriage, right? I'm still trying to figure out what is stopping you from arranging a marriage with your sons and your daughters. Nothing's stopping you from making arrangements with other black men that you feel like they've raised children similar to yours and having voluntary arranged marriages. So I guess the last question I would ask for those that want that, I'm trying to figure out what barrier is in place to stop you from doing it, because I know a lot of Desi people and I know a lot of Somali people in my neighborhood. They do it every day, arranged marriages.
Yeah, but they are a product of hundreds and maybe even thousands of years of a certain cultural.
That means we can practice the same thing because we get that result.
That's bred into their psychology that has never existed. That has never existed amongst African Americans. It just has never existed.
Hold on.
That's why you don't worry about it.
Culture starts with you. So like Black Euro, let's take you for example. Based on conversations with you, you've done the best that you can do with your daughters. You've sent them to private schools. You're there. You're in these spaces, absorbing information on the kind of potential males that you might want them to be with. So the question becomes, I get that you're saying that you don't have 1,000 years of cultural history, but if that's the case, if it's just about what happened 1,000 years ago, 10,000 years ago, well, then you might as well just throw in the towel on Native Black American, because our history in this country started in 1530 or so. So we can only go by what is here, what has been here, and how we're going to move forward. So what I'm saying to the men that believe in arranged marriage, what is stopping you from hooking your sons and your daughters up with the sons and daughters of men that you respect? And with that, I'll leave and I'll listen in. Thanks for having me on MLT. But I just, Black Euro is someone that can probably answer that, because I've been trying to figure this out forever, because I know too many Desi people and Somalis and things that every day they telling me, like a girl I know right now, she's telling me how one of her friends is in an arranged marriage and she could never do that or whatever. The law isn't coming down and say, the judge isn't coming down and say, hey, you marry this woman with this man. Their families are making those decisions. And because of the kind of interlocking relationships that they have with the other families, they're able to enforce it without the law. So the question becomes, how do those Black fathers and mothers work with other Black fathers and mothers to do what those other groups are doing without the 1,000-year history? Because again, if we're going to try to use that, then you might as well throw in the towel because we don't have 1,000 years. We got to fix the culture today. We're already a day too late. So with that,
I'm fixing it in my generation without all this crazy shit going on. So that's how
No,
I'm going to
absolutely.
yeah.
No, absolutely.
But MOT, you don't exclusively deal with ADOS women, right?
No, I would never
I mean,
exclusively do anything
so
like that.
there's a higher probability that you will be inclined to have a relationship with a woman that will consent or agree or help enable an arranged marriage per se. Would you agree?
Yeah, but
See,
you're
I'm saying the problem
making
is most black men, most ADOS black men are going to be with ADOS black women. What percentage or what's the likelihood of those women are going to consent to saying, my 12-year-old daughter is going to marry whomever else's son? What
I'd say a
percentage of
very
those
low
women are going to do
percentage.
that?
Very low percentage, honestly.
And because that's how I mean, if we're talking about arranged marriages. Arranged marriages don't occur when the children are 18, 19, or 20. They occur when the children are like 10, 11, and 12.
Not quite, but
So if you're gonna use this model, let's be clear about what all goes into that particular model. And do you have the requisite female resources in order to make that happen, and that you
yes,
can trust will go
yes,
all the way through with the deal.
yes. Women from other cultures, I don't even worry about their decision making process. It's not part of what I even care about.
well, I support what MOT just said. Again, I mean, this is where really black men having some intestinal fortitude and stepping up and putting their foot down. Because the fundamental problem is that if you don't have enough, if you have black men who are parents, who are fathers out here, you have daughters. If you're not willing to put your foot down and you let you're in your household and you're getting ran over by the mother, and your daughter sees you get ran over. This is the fundamental problem we're dealing with, is that you're dealing with a lot of black men who have not had the balls to tell their damn daughters the truth.
In the cultures in which women are more compliant, that's because the society, the laws, the regulations require them to be more compliant. We don't have that here in the United States. So as a result, you have a very feminist, gynocentric culture, laws, media, etc. So you are going to have a woman that consents to that in this particular country. Now, if you're talking about going outside of this country, sure, you could do those things. But here in the United States, you are some feminist bullshit away from getting fucked by a woman agreeing to going along with you, and then while you're not paying attention, or while you're not looking, she goes and totally left on you.
So,
We
Mr.
know this
Ura,
to
are
be
you saying all
true.
hope is basically lost then?
Well, I'm saying, one
That's
thing
really
that I
not a
think
political
black
piece.
men in particular, and men in general, but black men in particular should be doing is trying as best they can to obtain as much additional reproductive freedom as possible. That means financial abortion. That
Yeah, we're
means
here like
DNA. That
Black
means
Uru,
DNA
Black
testing.
Uru, Black Uru. I'm not trying to do this shit with people who don't have a track record of doing this right.
Again, I agree with that. MOT is round the money. This comes down to, this is gonna have to, the only way black men are gonna solve this problem, and this goes back to the issues of mentorship and vetting and is that, yeah, because I'll tell you right now, the brothers that I met that were physicians that mentored me, I'm telling you right now, they tell you outright what the game is. They
It's
the goal is that, yeah, you better be very careful about the women you pick. That's the game you get. That's part of that little mentorship piece that a lot of folks don't get. But on the
yeah,
on the
I got
oh,
to
I'm
just
sorry.
start dropping those people down whenever they come to the actual conversation with that sort of. I mean, it started with skin color, and then it started with admixture. Like, I don't give a fuck about none of that. Until you
Yeah.
motherfuckers start holding them motherfuckers responsible about how they fucked up this environment to where I can't pick one of these dark skinned motherfuckers without putting my life in serious fucking danger, I ain't trying to hear it.
I mean, I'm 27 years old. I mean, I'm about to be 27 September 1st. I don't have no children, but honestly, when I look at my environment and where I'm at, I honestly don't see myself having an ADO's wife, to be honest with you. Because
And
for
that's not
one,
our fault. That's not
yeah,
our
I know,
fault.
and this is and I'm going where you're gonna go with it. Like, dude, it's like I can't. There used to be a time where black women they wouldn't have their first kid until they're 31, 32. Well, damn, all the chicks I know, they're 26 and they're on their third with a third different dude. I
Like
don't
I
want those
said,
problems.
it's a far gone conclusion.
That's why I said
Yeah.
I might have to go SYSBM, and I might honestly have to go out the country when I get established and find me a wife.
And guess what? If they was there beside you, your ass wouldn't leave, would you? So
No,
that's
I
the
mean,
thing.
no, I
Nobody is
would
going
not.
to be waiting on these goddamn people. All right. This is why this is a man's channel. We don't give a fuck about what their choices are. Our choice is going to be counter to what they're doing. I don't even care. It has nothing to do with me giving a shit about them. Nothing.
Yeah.
At
So
the end of the
I mean,
day, they had their chance and choice. I do care about black people, but not to the point to where I have to put my choices on hold while somebody is fucking the entire planet and I have to go clean up their shit at the end of the day after I get my shit together. And then there's a divorce, she's back on the fucking carrot. Man, get the fuck out of here. I'm not doing shit.
and you think
And again,
SYSBM is strong now? Wait until Gen Z gets older, because Gen Z
Yeah.
black men are not loyal to black women. ADOS
They're
black women, they're
already
not.
there. They're already there.
And it's
And
going to
the
get
problem
worse.
is,
That's my point. It's going to even get worse. No, it's not worse, but they're going to really lead it when they get in their 20s and 30s. They're really
well,
going to lead that charge. So, well, who's black? Who
here's
are
the
they going to
thing.
have then?
Here's something to keep in mind. Again, this goes back to this family planning and why this is critically important that black men do not get this. You do not screw this up. You do not get this wrong. Because if any black man you're with a woman, you're not sitting down and having an honest conversation with this woman about children, about what it takes for you all to raise a children from birth to 18 years of age and through college potentially. If you're not having honest conversations with a woman about that, brother, you ain't got no business doing that. So I don't even understand where this conversation even goes when we're when
no,
we're when it
it is. It's what it is. It's a pro-black kind of last-ditch effort to get us to give a shit about people who never gave a shit about us. Sorry, that shit's not gonna happen. I'm sorry. I deserve fresh shit, and I'm gonna
Miss
get fresh shit. I don't give a fuck how
Mr.
far I gotta
Phoenix,
go.
Mr. Phoenix. I was on the panel the other day on one of these pro-black channels, and this lady had the audacity to sit there and tell me that if the complaint I just spewed to you guys, she said if I was a real black man, I would go into these households and raise these kids for these women.
Hell
Man,
no. She
Yeah,
too
yeah.
much.
I mean, and listen, that's where we're at with this whole thing. And I basically told her, I don't call women bees, but I had to say it. Bitch, are you crazy? I'm not about to sit here and go up in here and take care of no woman that got 3 kids by 3 different dudes. You
yeah, man.
crazy?
That's a
well,
Patriot missile strike. Fuck that. Like, get the fuck out of here.
Tomahawk missile.
Yeah, for real. Like, who the fuck is this person?
No, fundamentally speaking, look, at the end of the day, here's the problem. Like I said, in my line of work, this is a common issue. This pops up all the damn time. Whenever you're dealing with children and their health issues, it is never 100% about their health issues. I'd probably say it's more like 70-30. 30% their health, 70% you're dealing with the socioeconomic stuff. You got to deal with the children because many of them have depression. Many of them have other psychological issues. They have lead poisoning, have all kinds of stuff going on. And then you look at the women, and then the first thing is, okay, and here's a little secret about healthcare. In healthcare, they automatically assume most black women don't have the fathers of the children on around. So they don't even bother to ask black women about the fathers. That's a little secret. Why. Because everybody, black folks acting like this is just some grand secret that nobody knows. Everybody knows it. The research is out there. The data is out there. Everyone knows. And black folks are not doing themselves any favors by not having honest conversations about this. But again, I agree with you, MOT. Look, my fundamental belief is, and this is something that I had brothers tell me going into medical school, like, yeah, look, if you better you better get with a woman that's with you while you're going through this process, because you don't want to deal with them when you're on the other end of this process.
Yeah, I
So,
mean, because they
sorry.
expect for you to take the deal, so to say, no matter what. And I'm like, my man, look, y'all tripping, man. And they don't seem to give a shit that they're putting these people in immense danger to get their daughters off the market. And it's like nobody really cares about what the men's needs are. These women ought to be out of their fucking mind for even thinking they qualify for a fucking black man at this point, regardless of how you fucking acted.
Hey, I just want to thank you for having me on, brother. Thank you for the opportunity. Again, I agree with everything you said. The fundamental problem is that, brothers are gonna have to make some real hard choices. And really these choices are not very difficult. All you got to do is just ask yourself one simple question. What kind of life do I want to have? It's just that simple.
Yeah, it's just for me. This is not about anybody else's survival but our own. That's it. I'm not caring about these other groups. They're not part of the discussion. I don't know how they keep being reintroduced by other people into this discussion, but that's just where we're at, man. So there's nothing else I can do.
Well, thank you for having me, MOT. Appreciate it,
All right,
brother.
all
And
right,
have a good afternoon. Enjoy the rest of the evening.
all right, cool. All right, so y'all have
Hey,
to
bro, I
realize,
hit you.
man,
Hey,
that
bro, I hit y'all later, man. I got to go to an appointment. Talk to y'all later. Thanks, MOT.
all right, cool. All right, well, I want to thank everybody for coming through. This is about getting this stuff actually straightened out, so that way we don't keep doing this stuff over and over again. You can't be worried about these other groups of people. They're not really worried about us like that. This is about our point and us being able to move forward without all this stuff going on. So I thank everybody for coming through. Like, share, comment, and subscribe. I'm the man tomorrow. You guys have a really nice day.